they didn't come into this with, you know? So, alrighty, but I want to make sure none of the questions made you guys a little, like, whoa, when it came to it, because with it being the premiere and rolling straight out with racism, reverse racism, does reverse racism even exist, hitting on topics like that, it was like, I'm sorry, but on day one, so you're either going to have a lot of happy people or a lot of pissed off people, but either way, it's a conversation that needs to be had. It's a conversation we need to have. So, yeah, we're all adults. I don't think, like, no anger or name-calling or anything needs to be said, where we're all adults and mature and entitled to our opinions, but that's the point of having the uncomfortable conversations.
Maybe a little bit. maybe a tad bit.
Okay.
Don't take it to heart, but
right.
You know.
I'm gonna love you when this is over.
Yeah. But I'm gonna let my emotions be felt, though, you know.
You're
can you see that?
Stuff?
Yeah. Okay, don't worry. I'll get that. I was lying on Is this what you're supposed to be doing?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. What is that you're doing now?
What?
Are you on my page?
Hey, everybody who's about to be tuning in.
On your page.
We're here on
I was like, wait.
Uncomfortable Conversations with
Why is Legacy on your
Mama
Facebook
Joe.
page? Yes.
Oh, no, we're putting you in the camera. Yeah. About to. Here we have people around from the local community who's going to be talking about, for those who missed it, what Joe was saying, these conversations that we at times find to have uncomfortable, that goes across different lines from socioeconomic,
Do you still see it?
purely racial lines, and open up discussions that we never really have, or they cause stress, or they cause emotional responses between people. So we're about to get started soon. Keep tuning in. Officer, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Man.
I'm just the technology set up.
It's crazy. Yeah, things now. Yeah, you can.
Man, look, it's just.
We'll have to adjust it a little bit.
It's different.
There's two more people coming. Okay. And it's easier to have them do that instead of cross the path. Okay.
And Officer Alonzo Harden, correct?
Alonzo Harden.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How long you been? You're from San Antonio, or?
Born and raised.
Born and raised. Okay, cool.
Homegrown.
All right. Got y'all on. Cool. Rico, how you doing? Yep. From it's Black, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Happy to be here.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Flask. About 7:30.
How was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. It was relaxing. Just did some work around the house, man. Projects.
Who'd you go for?
So what now?
Who'd you go for this weekend?
Oh, I was out of Green Bay all the way, man. I'm still with Green Bay.
We're so close.
He
He had all the room.
He
had all the
I think
room.
I saw it on Facebook or somewhere where somebody actually drew an arrow, a big red arrow of the lane that he had, and he would usually do something
like right to the corner.
Yeah, he had the right corner wide open.
You know the old school man told me at the dentist? Aaron Rodgers threw that game.
Could be, because he had
Don't say that. Don't hurt me like
Because
that.
they want Tom Brady to be in. Come on, it's Cinderella story. The first team ever to play a home game in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady?
637.
You right there. You right there.
You didn't run that in?
Oh, yeah, you can turn it on.
There's a question mark on that.
Then you
But
sit there.
normally he would do that.
Yeah. Then you sitting at the conference. You know, I don't really
see somebody that look like Joe.
Bro.
I mean, like
He should have ran.
Yeah.
He wants to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So he
He
probably
probably end up in Frisco.
Yeah. I see
him going to Frisco.
I see Denver.
I only say Frisco because that's kind of where he started, and that's where he's from.
He's a California boy.
He's a California boy in his career.
So they're gonna trade Garoppolo?
Oh yeah. They have to trade him now so that they
Like
don't
how
lose
bad?
any money. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So Green Bay's getting ready to groom that new boy they got.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Starts with L.
Yeah. Yeah, they let
Not Love or Leffler. No, Leffler's the coach. I forgot his name. I can't call it right now.
So they invested a lot in that quarterback. So.
Yeah, and then they got a good receiving core. The running game is back to up.
What about
above
San Diego?
par.
Could you
For
see?
Aaron going to San Diego?
Can you see that?
Nah.
It got to be San Francisco,
It's
right?
gonna be San Francisco.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're live. The audio is off. The audience can only hear music. But you should be going live. Whenever you're ready, just let me know.
Oh, so we live now?
Yeah, your mic is off. The audience can only hear music.
Oh, okay. So we about to come on. Let me in.
What's up to the problem?
Oh, you're trying to get them a chance to get here?
Yeah. Yeah. Judd said she was only a few minutes away.
Let's talk to
That's right here.
Yeah.
Judd said she was only a few minutes away. She was on Flores Street. That was about 10-15 minutes ago. So she should be here within any minutes. And Camilla had said the same thing. So we are hoping.
Female?
That's my phone?
Yes.
That looks like
Same thing.
The ladies. We are waiting on the ladies. Farrah, are you live already? Come on your phone. Okay.
I'm live right now.
Okay.
So,
you
but
can
I got
start-
everybody waiting. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
You can start to go live on your phone if you would like, so that we can start getting the people in to start the podcast. Hi guys. Thank you guys for joining us. For right now, we're getting ready to get started with Uncomfortable Conversations. If you guys are on TikTok and only follow me on TikTok, in my bio, I have all of my other information, social media contacts for you guys to get on in case TikTok disconnects us because of controversial content, which you guys already know they always have a tendency to do to me. So in my bio, I have my Instagram at Jeaux25. Jeaux is spelled the same way as it is on here. And then on Facebook under Jordan Joe Parks. You guys can tune in there just in case they kick me off of here. You can just go to my bio and it has that information. We are waiting on two panelists, my women, my females, to tune in, but I can go ahead and start introducing you guys right before we get started. Let me turn my camera around. Back to me. Back to continue. So we are at the table. Here we have Mr. Sledge, Tory Sledge. There we have Mr. Walter Perry. I don't know if you guys can see him with those bright lights on that side.
How y'all doing?
We have Officer Alonzo Harden. We have Pharaoh Clark here. So my men, we're on time.
It's a change.
On time. It is a change.
We
It
talking
is a
about
change. They were on time. And my ladies run a little behind today. We've got but I too, I didn't run behind, but I too had to definitely get some time management together myself, or I probably would have been late to my own production. So, for those of you just tuning in, today's Uncomfortable Conversation will be covering racism, reverse racism and its existence, and police reform, which comes in handy that we do have law enforcement here as well as a judge. She's running late, but she's coming to have these conversations. So super exciting, super excited. You guys stay tuned, but again, don't forget to follow on Instagram and Facebook in case TikTok kicks us off of here for controversial content, or controversial conversation. I will be paying attention to the comments on Facebook and Instagram. So if you guys would like to join in conversation, ask questions, things of that nature, you may not get a live response, but of course when we finish, we'll be going through and looking, and you very well may get a response from myself or any of the other panelists if they see your comments. So all amazing topics that need to be addressed in this safe zone. Yes, absolutely. So we have created that, well, I have created that safe space for you guys here on TikTok. I cannot necessarily, well, I think that it's still a safe place. I just can't speak for other people. So I cannot speak for how safe your comments will be taken by the other people at this table. But for myself, it is still a safe space for you guys to ask your questions and get real answers without judgment. So there's that. But Uncomfortable Conversations will be airing here soon. We are hoping to get us running, functioning every 2 weeks with either, whether it be just myself or a full panel. I think that's the judge. And if that is, then we can go ahead and we can start fully and just wait on Camilla to come in. Nope, that's Billy. Damn I was like, oh, we can get rolling. Rico, and you said on Facebook, on my Facebook right now, all they're hearing is music?
All they're hearing is music and your logo. All that appears is your logo.
It's music and my logo. Okay. Alrighty. Oh, what a day. Will the additional person panel be with you in person? Yeah, they're here. They're here. I'll probably, as I expand, I won't mind doing some virtuals and having people brought in once we figure out how to do that, because we've never done this before. But as of right now, yeah, the entire panel's here. We just got a long, as you can see, that super long table for social distancing. Hi, everyone that's joining. Thank you for all the compliments. Appreciate it. Come on in the room. You know how we do. As those numbers grow, and then Facebook has grown. Tori's already live. You went live on yours, sir?
No, I think it just has to be pushed from that end. Remember on the phone down here, because on that one I'm gonna use to watch yours and then go on over the comment.
Alrighty, we're waiting. They said, look, we're waiting on the women. That's all they see. I'm excited. That feels official.
Oh, the camera still going?
A logo with some music.
The camera still going?
Who do you ask for? I
it
would
is.
assume. Where do you go? Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But y'all aren't on the screen
Oh.
that side.
Yeah, the cameras are, our cameras are not picking my phone.
Hey y'all, what are we talking about? Welcome, those of you that are joining. We are getting ready to start Uncomfortable Conversations podcast here. So we're all going live. As you can see, we're all going live on our stuff before we start our conversations.
I knew that it was here, but I didn't know that.
Today's topic will be racism, reverse racism, and police reform. We do have an officer on the panel today as well as a judge to speak from their point of view, which would be super awesome, as well as activists, Black Lives Matter activists and whatnot on the panel, which is also awesome to have both, and both points of view, both, different generations, being able to just kind of have a really fully in-depth conversation and understand some things we may not have understood before, right? So, super excited about that. We're just waiting on 2 more panelists right now. I was trying to give them an opportunity to get here, but we very well may have to go ahead and get started without them. And just let them kind of come in and join the conversation. What do y'all think?
Not this table, but another one.
Getting ready to start.
I ain't got time, but I also don't want to be here till 9.
We're going to be talking about
Yeah, I'm like,
yeah,
I'm like, it's been a day. They have to take baths and go to bed. I've got children, so. Right.
Yeah, man.
We'll be on live, right?
Go on live.
You'll see me somewhere.
You'll see me somewhere.
I know Killer Streets, he showed
You can put your thumb on me. I don't have a problem.
It's so important to keep the dialogue open. Yes, it is. Yes, go ahead. Please start. Reverse racism. Please go over it. You're literally the best. Just saying. Y'all are so sweet. I absolutely love you guys. But yeah, so we will be starting with racism. I'm super excited to start having uncomfortable conversations. And I know that I probably shouldn't be, but like this is where I thrive. I thrive in what other people would deem uncomfortable conversations, only because I have a thirst for knowledge. I want to understand my point of view. I want to understand my point of view, but I want to understand yours. Even if I still at the end of it think that you're wrong, I still want to know. I want to know factually that you are wrong by hearing your point of view. So, any comments on the Tacoma officer that drove over crowded people?
So do you want him to be tight in the angle on you and Pharaoh while you do the introductions or whatever, and then pan out when you're ready for everyone else to do their introductions, or do you just want it everyone at the same time?
Yeah, I like the pan in and pan out.
Okay.
And then he's gonna zoom in on everybody as they introduce themselves.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't get to.
Do you want to give me some? Cue as to when you want him to start panning out, or align your thing so he knows to get ready to pan out. I just like introducing other people or whatever. we like, or to my right, we have Torch Floyd, and to my left, whoever, and then start panning out that way and going around to each other.
Yeah.
Want to do that way? Okay.
For you guys, would you like to introduce yourselves, or would you like me to introduce you guys on how I personally know you and how you got here?
You
I feel like it'd flow better if you did it.
yeah.
I'm just here for the conversation. I'm just here.
I'm actually real good on that.
Direction.
Let the people know who I be. Okay.
I'm just here. I'm just here. I don't even know how. I just walked into this place. Thought I was gonna eat some barbecue. Yeah, I came here. I came here for barbecue.
Uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, and somehow they were like, "Hey, brother,
Hello,
let me."
beauty. Hello. Kamia's here. We got another chick, guys. Super excited. I'm going to your Facebook. Don't want to take a chance on TikTok. Okay, I'll see you there, love. I'm already live. If you go to my Facebook right now and you click on my live, it's gonna say The Village Project, which is my organization, and you're just gonna hear music right now. And we're getting ready to go like full on live in just a few minutes. What time is it? 6:50. We're about 20 minutes over at this point, so the judge is probably just gonna have to join in on us. I can't. Yeah, because I'm expecting this conversation to be roughly about an hour to an hour and a half. So 6:30 to 7:30, 8 o'clock was like cool. If it started at 7 and it went to like 8:30, cool. But past that to like 8:40, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't live far, but I don't want to do that. Hello, beautiful. Thank you for coming.
I know, I get it. That's what I do.
I don't care about a phone book. You got a phone book? I don't know, man. I'm just trying to age myself. I know you know where I'm from.
Okay, Camilla. What we had said was I'm going to do the intro, so it's going to be panned in, and then when they pan out, I'm going to introduce you guys based on, or at least that's what they had voted. Introduce you guys and how I know you and what you're in this panel or whatever for the first time, right? For the first thing. I'm super excited. Thank you for coming. I'm super excited to see you. Are you okay?
Yes, I tracked. There was a windmill that fell on the highway.
Oh my
I had to
God.
go over the house and blocking off. It was just a lot.
One of those big white ones?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow.
That sounds stressful. I'm feeling stressed. When you walked in, I'm like picking up on it, and I'm like,
When I'm here, I made it. I'm alive.
absolutely,
All is well.
absolutely. Everybody's going live. They're gonna go live on their Facebooks and their Instagrams to maximize the amount of people who see it. There are outlets. Also, feel free to redirect. I don't think this is something that you will have, but feel free to redirect or say, can we put a pin in that or come back to me on that if there's a subject that pushes you a little too far into a discomfort and uncomfort. We're supposed to be having uncomfortable conversations, but if it's a trigger, too pushy, anything like that, just let us know. And we can
So I know
carry
how
the
you
rest of
operate, so just, yeah, you're official, but y'all look official as hell. I can't stand it.
Yes, honey. It's gonna be like what?
30 minutes over.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started here. We'll do, what are we doing? Quiet on set. When the judge comes, she can just grab a seat and join on in. Yes. So then, is it going to go from zooming into me to panning out onto everyone, or is it going to zoom into me and then as I introduce them, pan onto them?
Yeah, we have different cameras, so we'll probably set up the best way, and then like cut to when people.
Nobody wants to spend their money, and you keep, and you think it's going to be like business, we're not spending money with you. You don't want trash. You need to stack it up too.
Yeah, so introduce starting on your left. Yeah,
And they just need to just raise their hand, 'cause right?
Pharaoh, Lord.
Life that they living, never had a business.
All right.
And you talking about black business.
And we're getting ready? We are. He's about to count us in, Walt.
I'm finna get my friend the phone.
They're getting ready to start. Quick trick.
What they tell us in the movie? Quiet on set! Where's the oh? Oh.
Alright, play on the music.
Stand by.
I'm about to turn your mics on.
Yay! Hello all and hello everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on Uncomfortable Conversations. I know a few of you guys have been waiting on it and asking when that good old podcast was going to come, and we have delivered. My name is Joe. My name is Jordan, Joe Parks. I started the Village Project in trying to do something for the community outside of what I was already doing. I feel like in order to make a change, we have to be a change. So I decided to step forward and become the change that I wanted to see in the world. Uncomfortable Conversations is a podcast. It is exactly what it says. I intend on having a panel every 2 weeks to have these uncomfortable conversations. I figure a lot of the topics that we know as taboo, that we know aren't things you're supposed to speak about with everyone, a lot of those things are really important to us, and they shape us and they shape this world. And if we're not talking about them, then we're not actually sharing with each other. Everything is very surface level. And I wanted to dive a little deeper into our world, dive a little deeper into your world, dive a little deeper into this world, and figure out exactly what our problems are so that we can fix them together. So, Uncomfortable Conversations topics today should, make you uncomfortable. And my panelists that I have on today, to my left, I have Mr. Farrell Clark. To my right, I have Mr. Tory Sledge. Officer Alonzo Harden, Walter Perry, and Miss Camilla Factory. Judge Grace Uzomba will be joining us today. She was running a bit late, but she will be joining the topics of conversation, of uncomfortable conversation, with us as soon as she arrives. How's everybody doing?
Great, good, excited. Glad to be here.
We're good. I am super excited. I'm excited for this to be the premiere, but I am also excited to have each individual specifically that we have today for this panel. I met a lot of you guys this summer in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, and I kind of feel like even if we had been activated before that moment, there was a different level of activation, if that makes sense. Like, we all kind of went beyond a surface. We all built bonds, trauma bonds really, with each other based on what we had experienced and what we were going through. And I'm really excited to share the premiere of Uncomfortable Conversations with each of you guys, because I feel that each of you brings something different, a different background, a different mindset. None of you are afraid to speak your minds and say exactly how you feel. But you're all also really receptive, and that's what we need if we're going to start having uncomfortable conversations. We need to be able to say, this is where I stand. Why do you stand on that side? And figure out exactly, if we're actually standing on the same side, we just should have drawn a line, you know? So, that is how we're going to start. With that being said, you guys ready? Is everybody nice and comfortable until we get uncomfortable? Y'all ready to get started?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can I take my mask off?
You can take your mask off. We are all nice and
COVID
distant
check
here.
you. You gotta
Get
the thermometer. I need.
Get the
Hold on.
thermometer.
Can y'all COVID check me real quick? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Alrighty guys, since I did meet the majority of you guys through the movement, through the Black Lives Matter movement, I still felt like although we were on the same side as far as fighting for our lives, I feel like the end goal was a little different, and who we were fighting and what we were fighting may have been different within the movement, not necessarily us specifically, but within the movement. With all of us being there, we saw anti-Blackness within the Black community. We saw people who were angry more so at only at officers and not paying attention to the full judicial system as far as judges and lawyers and other people who are setting us up as well. Not necessarily setting us up, but setting us up. We saw people who were very anti, government completely. The entire thing needs to come down, versus people who were, well, no, we just need to fix this, this, and this, and that was still within the movement. So we knew that something needed to change, but no one really agreed on what those changes needed to be. So today, I didn't necessarily want to go straight into politics. I wanted to go straight into the root of what everyone is speaking about when it comes to Black Lives Matter, and that's racism. So our first question for uncomfortable conversation was, what does racism look like today? And I'll give you a couple seconds to just kind of let that simmer in your mind. I feel like a lot of people, when they think of racism, they think of the acts of violence that were placed on us back in slavery days. They think that if you're not being lashed, if you're not being strung up, if you're not being, drugged down a street by a horse, then, that wasn't racist. I just said something you don't agree with. We get hit with stuff like that. No, you're just sensitive. You're playing the race card. What does racism look like to us today?
Are you asking?
Yes, I'm asking all of you.
Racism,
dive right on in.
To me, racism looks exactly the same way it did when they first brought us over here. Racism is economic. So what I mean by that is you can't truly call yourself a racist unless you have economic power over people. You stop them, everything about them, and you dictate the future generations of these people. That is racism right there. When you have the power to dictate how these people are going to be years from now. And so if we look at when we came from the slave ships to how they looked at us in auctions, look at it today. It's the NFL Combine. They got these same men. You looking at them, you telling them to run, and you putting money on them. And if these people don't perform, you void their contract. And then you just kind of pretty much throw them away. But there's deeper levels to it, and it all boils down to economics. There's an economic impact to everything.
So by that definition, because it sounds almost like racism and classism, you married those there. I don't know how to explain what it is, but my thought process went. So in that scenario where you have to have power or to be able to change someone's life in order to be racist, someone in a position of power, such as an officer, even though he's black, could he be considered racist? If someone like Judge, who is in the position to change people's lives, to change people's economic, to change people's all of that, could she be racist even though she's black because of her class or because of where she is there?
No, because he answers to somebody. He can be. It's another word. It's not racist. It's another word when the police that looks like you transgresses beyond bounds. Now that might be some self-hate on his part, where he hates himself and he's projecting that on me out of whatever. But racism is economic. It's economical. People who stop you from advancing. People who use their money to preserve their race over yours. That's what racism is to preserve the superior race over the inferior race. So you got to have money to preserve that. How do you get money? You got to put yourself in a position to where you got these people making money for you. We built the White House. They ran up in there. We got the cotton. We built the cotton gins. We made so much money for these people to the point to where we don't want to, like a lot of us don't want to fight back, because we feel like if we fight back, it's taking away our livelihood. And that's the truth. Think about it. I just read a study that compared black women to white men in the job market. And I'm saying to myself, what? Why y'all not comparing black women to white women? Maybe because that white woman's your boss. And you better not say nothing or she's going to fire you. It's financial. It's economic. So when somebody has power over your check, where you live, what you eat, they got you. But if they don't have power over that, if I'm making my money, I don't care how you feel about my skin. You don't control me. And that's what racism is. It's when they control everything about your life to where you can't do nothing. You want to see real racism? Go to prison. That's the first time I got called a nigga. Not out here. It was in prison. Because they had me under their control. And he said, little scrawny white boy. He said, yeah, you just a nigger. You don't got no rights up in here. I said, yeah, I do. I got the rights to go out and I slapped the hell out of them. They beat me down. But the point I was making was that I ain't nobody's property. Just because I'm in here, you don't control me. But I had to go through that to do it. And so that's why I feel like racism is economic.
Okay. The judge has joined us, guys. Judge Uzomba, thank you so much for joining us. The topic of the topic of discussion right now is, what does racism look like today? Walt was just explaining his point of view that racism is economical. Tori or Tabia, you guys want to chime in? I will chime in with mine.
I would say that racism is subtle. When I asked my grandfather what was different about what he saw during the 60s and today, he said that these people are in the White House. These people are our doctors. They are our realtors. They are law enforcement. And so racism is more subtle than people think, and I absolutely agree with you. The NFL, the sentiment in which black bodies are addressed in the United States is succumbed down to, not even that, is generations of trauma and violence that we face. So I think we have a lot of power right now to reframe and reimagine our lives for the future. Right now, the youth are looking to us, and they're looking for a reason to live, and we have to see their future exist. And so I hate to see Black Lives Matter still all these months later be this grotesque, sad conversation, because we matter so much more than a hashtag that we have to constantly say that, by the way, are only a trend to some people. Black Lives Matter is something trendy to put in your bio to say that you stand here, but what Black Lives Matter looks like in this city is a totally different conversation. And so I think, sitting at tables like this today and talking about our lives mattering outside the scope of a hashtag, outside the scope of death, is super important.
And I would just add to that, where it's just like, what does racism look like today? You have to look at a macro scale, and then you also have to look as you scale it down to the micro level. Because when you look on it like in a macro scale, you have to look at the history of what racism and what racism comes from. And actually, if you look at history, this goes back to more fear-driven, back to the fall of Rome, because the racism that we're dealing with today is white Christianity versus dark Africa. This goes back to the fall of Rome, and when you have like the first introduction of the black Moors coming through North Africa into France and up through Italy, and at the Battle of Tours, where you have white Christendom fighting off Muslim blackness. And that's where the first intrication, like the indicativeness of this white versus dark comes from. And that was, we're talking Battle of Tours, so we're talking around 9th century. And you continuously look at the histories, because remember, the United States is built from the Western Roman ideas that came, right? Renaissance over, that idea is what built this country. And those are the facts, and that's where it stands on. So that's the same paradigm in which we live in. So when you take back and you look at that history, and you look over as you have the Crusades, right? You have, again, white Christianity versus dark Muslim, or even just the identity of darkness. And then you have the British Empire going across half the world and conquering it. What you have is you have this idea of that dark skin is scary, it's barbaric, it's animalistic. They are not human. Why? Because Africa has a lot of resources. So you have the British and European empires that are colonizing resources all across the world. And if you go into indigenous lands and you see, what do most people in indigenous cultures look like? They're darker skinned than majority of your other cultures. So, and they're always on the resources. So how do you get people to go and fight and make it seem like they don't need those resources? We can take those resources. Well, because the people who live there on those lands, they're less than human. they're inferior. They're not like us. And you can actually look at all of the literature. You can look at tons and tons of literature for hundreds of years that are put out by European nations where it was always a barbarian. They are inhuman. They're animals. They're monkeys. And that ideology has persisted across the world, because we talk about racism here in the United States, but there's racism towards Africans all across the world. If you look at any place where the British or European have colonized, there is a racism against dark-skinned people, especially Africans and people of African descent. So now, instead of like just looking at it by time, because another big problem that we have is that we don't understand time. We're only 4 people away from the Civil War, right? So we're only 4 people away from the Civil War. To 1600s, we're only 16 people away. To year 0, right? We're add another 100 years. We're 21, so 21 times 4 pretty much, because there's about 4 people every 100 years. So 48 to 49 people away from year 0. So if you think about time as people, span of people, the ideology that we are the consequence of, it's not far away. It's not like, oh my goodness, where did all this come from? This was yesterday in the matter of time. This was 1 day ago in the matter of time. This racism is the ideology. That's the hardest thing that we're fighting. Yes, you can put it into socioeconomic terms. You can put it into economic. The ideology of that there is humans that are less than because of the color of their skin. That's what race is. Race is a child of racism, because truly there's no difference in biology of races. There's no difference in my biology and how I work compared to you, compared to anybody in this room, compared to somebody white, Chinese. There's no biological identifier in science that says that person's black, Chinese, whatever.
What?
Yeah, there's none of that. There's no identifier. There's no DNA identifier. There's no genome for that. This is just purely based on the proteins of your parents. The protein chains and amino acids, that's what gives us our melanin.
Break down.
Everything come from Africa.
Everything does come from Africa.
Everything,
We come from Africa, bro.
what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Everything is come from black.
Hold on. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the biology.
Creation.
I'm talking about DNA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
black.
There's no DNA difference between you and a Chinese person. Like your sequencing of DNA and how it's chained up. Like if I was to take your genome, there's nothing that differentiates you from someone that's Chinese. You're human.
Everything come from Africa. Everything
Okay.
come from Africa.
Okay.
So as you guys see, we're about to get uncomfortable.
What are you thinking I'm saying?
I think you said a lot of mumbo jumbo about black people. That's not black.
I think we got a
Let me
lot
tell you
of
what
history.
racism is. Racism is Black Wall Street. When black people was thriving, having things without white folks. White folks got mad
And blew it up.
I know
what the fuck they
Why
did.
did they do that?
Because they hated to see us achieve.
Okay.
So what are you talking about?
What does that got to do with the genome? What did that got to do with time? Black people run on CP time. That's the time we got. We got our own time. And the thing about it is that black people built this country. And the thing about it is that President Biden, he signed 36 executive orders for everybody but black people.
You're right. You're right. Where am I taking this up?
Listen. I done heard all the science about black people. It comes back to black. No matter what. You go to Africa, it's black. Eden, it's in Africa. It's all black. Even the Underground Railroad. It was one from here to Mexico. It was black people going back and forth who didn't want to be slaves. They were going back and forth to Mexico. But a lot of Mexicans ain't going to come with us and admit that they come from slaves.
Right.
It's facts.
Right.
We are the most studious people on earth.
Right.
The African American, the black people. We are the most studious people on earth. Everybody get their stuff from us. Our culture, our swag, everything. They get it from us.
Facts.
We built this.
Facts.
Descendants of slaves. I don't know about where I come from in Africa. One day I'm going to know. But I know where I come from in America. I know what my grandpa did.
Right.
I know what his grandpa did.
Right.
I know what Eli Whitney did. Louis Latimer did.
Facts.
I know what George Washington Carver did. I know what Malcolm X did. But you gotta understand, bro, we not here. We trying to get answers to why people feeling the way they feeling about us.
That's fine, but you have to come back from the history of where it all comes from.
You got Neil Tyson deGrasse.
So
You
wait.
You got Neil Tyson.
Neil
So
deGrasse Tyson.
the question is, what does racism look like today?
It don't look like that. It looks like it looks
So you don't
like,
think racism is fear based?
it looks like black folks not getting no jobs. It looks like we not getting access to resources. It looks like we talking to the police trying to get some answers. We got problems with housing. The same things we had problems with when we got emancipated.
Mm-hmm.
White folks can't leave us alone.
Mm-hmm.
They leave everybody else alone. But
Facts.
every time, what those niggas doing, they want to find out what we doing.
Right.
So in your opinion, Walt, the largest part of racism that matters specifically to you are the lack of resources in the black
It all
community.
comes down to economics because look, if you can't buy a house, you can't start generational wealth for your family. If you can't get a loan, people redlining here. Y'all need to know the history of this town. Like, so many black folks that fought just for us to have a little bit, for y'all to even be sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
And racism has always been here, and so many black people been fighting here. But you got to know the history to know what to do for the future. But if you ignore the history and just start coming with some quasars and bingo numbers, you're gonna be yelling bingo at everything. Man, look, I'm a black man who ran these streets. I was a gangbang out here. I seen my friends get killed. I shot at people. People shot at me. I did almost 8 years in the penitentiary in TDC. When I was in there, I went to college. I got my truck driving license and came home. This is my 20th year being free. So what the hell you know about my struggle?
What do you know about mine?
I don't.
Okay,
I'm trying
but
to
that's
say
what
it.
I'm saying. That's
But
what I'm
you-
saying.
But you are not giving us the space to like speak on the realities of what's going on here.
You interrupted me. Hold on.
Let's hit Let's hit a different generation. Judge, in your opinion, what does racism look like today?
The same as it looked from the beginning of time.
So you think racism has not changed? It hasn't elevated or dropped at all since you were a child or since
the beginning of time.
Since now? No?
No, it has not been.
So what does it look like?
Whenever you have any kind of differences amongst people at all, you're going to have a different type of treatment. So racism is, and I do not like using that word, because there's only one human race, period. And so when people treat people differently, based on any circumstance, any differentiation whatsoever, that is a different treatment. It's a pre-judgment. If you put those two words together and pronounce them fast, it's called prejudice. Right?
Yes.
Pre-judgment, pre-prejudice.
Yes.
So anytime that you have prejudicial differential treatment, it is prejudice. And so I do not like using the term racism, racist, or anything of that nature because there's only one human race, and for you to be able to say that, then you're going along with the terminology that says, oh, I mean, what are you going to say? And everything is a color. If you say, okay, Chinese, they're categorized as yellow, brown, black, red, Indians, right? If you characterize all of these, everybody's a color. White is a color. So, ethnicity, cultural, traditional differences. I may not understand all of yours, and I should expect you, as much as you expect me to understand you, I should expect you to try to understand me. And so if we start respecting ourselves, one, and then two, demand that respect, then that's all you have to be able to do to overcome differential treatment. But it has not changed. Differential treatment has not changed, and I'm afraid it may never change as long as we're different.
I agree with a large portion of what you said, Judge. I think one of my hesitancies when it comes to racism versus calling it prejudice or things of that nature is I feel like once something is created, it's really hard to undo it. Like, it's really hard to go back and unlearn it. So the fact that race has been created now, the fact that there is a difference between black and white, and we recognize that we see it. There is very much so a difference between Asian and black, and we very much so see it. I don't know if there will ever become a time where we can just untrain race, where we can just say that race no longer exists and we're just the human race. I don't think we can undo the fact that race is now a thing, therefore racism has to exist, and the word race has to exist, and racists have to exist because white people created race.
Yes.
So although we may not like using the word, we do have to acknowledge the existence of both racism and racist, because it has been invented now, it's created. We can't just make them all disappear, just like we can't make race disappear. We can't then make racism and racist disappear by simply respecting ourselves and saying that we're going to respect others, because there will always be others that don't.
But if we,
follow kind,
if we
right?
continue to react, I'm sorry, Judge, go for it.
If you wish to gain independence and wish to gain and say, I want to be able to do something different, why are you dancing to the tune of somebody else? If you're saying that these folks created it, then create something different. Okay.
So to take race and turn it into something else?
What
We
race
did.
are you? What race are you?
We don't know.
Human.
Sorry. What race are you?
I'm black. That's
That's
just my
what
answer to
it
everything.
says.
That's my color. I'm
We're
black.
the only
but
people
what's
on Earth
key-
who don't know where we come from. We don't have our own language, so we've adopted language from everybody else. May I ask you a question? May I ask you a question, Judge?
Everybody else has to in history.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, you can, but as far as language is concerned, there is no one pure language. There isn't.
Well, there are different dialects, different ways of speaking, and unfortunately for us, we speak the white man's language.
Okay, but there isn't.
Oh.
There is no pure language.
I didn't say that. I said we talk like the white man.
Well,
We think like the white man.
No, you.
The black man and the white man in America are just like this.
Okay, you said that we don't have a language. And I'm just saying that there's no.
Through our experiences, the Civil War,
Let's
coming
get
over
uncomfortable.
here, the intermixing of the races through the slave master and the slaves, our experiences in America, that's what, right there, we have to realize that we have a lot in common, but we have a lot of differences that we have to like respect from each other. Like for anytime I see a police shooting of an unarmed black person, or not just that, when I see in my neighborhood on Hayes Street, the last 3 days in a row, murders. Ain't nobody marching over there. I don't see nobody speaking on that. But every time a police shoots somebody, everybody's going to march. We need you to march on Hayes. We need y'all to put away the criminals who got these mothers out here who got unsolved murders on their kids. Nobody ain't speaking on that. But then I hear Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. We don't speak like that.
For those of you
I would
asking
like to
how
speak
we
to
know
that
that
when
white
you're
people
I don't
created
see-
race,
I
look it
don't
up.
see
It was
no
a white
marching
man.
on Hayes.
No, and
It'll tell you all
I
about
like
it.
to speak on that because I feel
Go
like
ahead,
that's
go ahead.
always something. But I feel like us, when people that are saying Black Lives Matter are trying to stand up for the murder and the slaughter of our people, then it's always thrown back on us. Well, what about when you killed yourself? But we would never hear that same argument in any other community. In any other race or community. You've been in law enforcement a long time, and I'm sure you know that crime happens wherever you live at. So if I'm in a white community and it's a low-income community, then I'm a white person that lives there, then I'm committing crime against other white people, yes?
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, so then you commit crime where you stay. It's not because it's a black-on-black thing, it's because it's a crime thing. The black-on-black crime does not exist. This is a lie that was sold to us by white people who want us to believe that somehow we're predispositioned to hurting each other. Because Europeans for years went to battle with each other. They killed each other by the thousands of people. I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is crime is driven by economics. It's not a black-on-black crime. It's a you have, I don't have.
What do you expect the police to do
take
when they
it
get
from
to
me.
Hayes Street? How do you expect them to act when they get over there?
What do you mean, how do I expect them to act?
It's been shootings, it's been murders 3 days in a row.
Like they don't care.
Hold on. How do you expect the police?
First of all, they're going to take their happy goddamn time getting there.
Exactly.
No, but when you're saying how do I expect them to act, I'm
My
trying
point
to.
is this. My point is this. People, You can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh yeah, you know, Black Lives Matter, but only against the police. But then you gonna tell me, somebody who lives on the east side in the sticks, who see murders all the time. It's not the police doing this. It's not white racists doing this. Hold on, man.
Mm-hmm.
I need y'all to be out in the streets too. I'm about the streets. I'm out there for real. All this getting on TV and just, I got the slogan and the flags, and then you talking about I don't want to do this. Bro, if you can't talk to the thugs and the gangsters like that, you ain't no brother of mine. You ain't no black brother of mine, because Black Lives Matter is all the way around. Against the police, against politicians, and against the hood. If you shooting kids, you shooting old folks, you my enemy. I don't care what color you are.
And I agree
you
with
can't
that.
speak like, hold
I
on.
agree
If y'all
with
can't
that.
bring that same energy for the community, I got no respect for that.
And that's fine. But
And
but
you
the
go on the
thing is,
website-
that is fine. That's
Hold on. And you
100%
go on the
fine.
website of Black Lives Matter, and it says they are eradicating fathers in the home. What type of black movie you gonna have without black men and black fathers?
I don't know anything about
Go
that. 'cause
read it. It's the 12 guiding principles,
But
and then
the-
I read it.
But we're
Black
not.
Lives
We're
Matter is
not.
talking
We
about
are
people
not.
black
We are.
people.
We
topic-
our organization
on
is
topic
not
right
connected to that
now.
organization,
Right.
so that has
Listen,
nothing to do with
listen,
it.
listen. I'm
that
black.
has-
I'm black for real.
That's great.
I
Everybody
don't- I
everybody
don't
here
see
is
y'all in the
black.
black schools.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I don't.
I thought,
This went last
excuse
week.
me, I thought we were here to have a conversation.
We are.
Yeah, this
We
is
are.
doing something
We're
totally
supposed to
different.
be having
We
an
are.
uncomfortable conversation,
We
not
are.
an argument,
We are,
but an
Judge.
uncomfortable conversation. Because I'm a little confused.
Yeah, but because
what topic
We might
we're
have a
on right
couple
now.
years because
no, because this should
we
be
gotta get
touched
down
on
with
because
it.
this is
No
Black Lives Matter
disrespect.
being attacked.
I'm not trying
Like
to
we're
attack
to
nobody,
blame for
but
any
this is
black
something that
person
needs to
who.
be addressed.
No, and I do agree.
Because
I agree that it
listen,
should be
we got
addressed,
people
but it
trying
has to be
represent
addressed.
my community. And man, if you don't love the
Our
people,
community.
my
Our
community.
community.
Hold on.
Our
Let's
community.
take a pause.
Our
both
community.
Of you, both of you, let's simmer down just a bit because
Our
I feel
community.
like
y'all playing with black people around here.
I don't know who y'all is, but I feel like
Anybody
our
around here
conversation
who ain't taking it to all the black people
is no longer comfortable. It just took a left.
No,
It's
I
like
feel
this
like-
isn't even
I
a
feel like
comfortable conversation. It's just left.
Because there are people, black
The
folks,
question-
our community, the black community is tired of people using our tragedy for fame. Stuff going on the east side, and then y'all run into a camera. But ain't nobody at King, ain't nobody at Davis, ain't nobody at Sam, ain't nobody at them black schools where they underperforming.
That's not true.
I'm
Yeah,
there.
that
I'm
is
there.
not- that is
Right.
not true.
I'm there.
That's not.
That is
that's
not true.
What
now
I'm
you're
saying.
there because you're trying to get something. But I've been there when I wasn't running. Because I love
So
the
then,
people
so
there.
wait, so wait. You're
so
telling me
the
that I
problem
haven't
is-
done anything for the community
I don't
until I
know what
started
you've been
running?
doing. I ain't
All right,
seen
so
it.
then
Right,
you
guys,
haven't seen
guys,
me, and I haven't
guys,
seen, and I
guys,
haven't seen
Pharaoh,
you.
Walt,
So just
Pharaoh,
because you haven't seen me,
Pharaoh,
just because you
Walt,
haven't seen me
hello.
does not mean
You can't be
anything.
a testament.
Just because
You
you.
can't be a pimp.
So
If we-
now you're gonna attack
That-
me because of the way I dress.
No.
So now I'm a pimp now. No, we're good. We're good. Now I'm a pimp because of the way
If we
I
can
dress.
get back
That
on
right there is some
topic,
of that black on
the
black
topic
violence we're talking about. Is
is
attacking
what
black
does
people.
racism look like? If we want to, if we want to have a conversation specifically. Okay, thank you. I
I
appreciate
think
it.
I'm fine. I'm good. I'm fine.
No, ain't nobody about to get physical here.
Okay,
My thing is the
also
topic is
remember,
what does
we are
racism
being
look like?
watched as
No,
well.
yeah, I know that. And that's
Yeah,
what I'm
but
and that's
they
the
need
one
to
see
thing that I'm
this.
saying.
Yeah, they do.
Thank you.
They do.
Is what does racism look like today, guys?
Yeah,
We're
we
gonna have to
got
get
that.
out of here. But two, we also are going to have to stay on subject. If there is
We
a
on
topic,
subject.
No,
that
this
we're
is-
not. We're talking
This
about
reverse
District 2.
racism.
We
When
haven't
you
even gotten
taking
to
black
reverse
tragedy-
What
racism
they're
yet.
saying is
When
that
you
we're
taking black
capitalizing
tragedies
off of black
on the east
tragedy, so
side,
that's definitely
when y'all
something
taking
that's
black
on top of
tragedies on the
black
east side
capitalizing off of black
and marching and getting fame off of our tragedies in our neighborhood.
Our marches had nothing to do with fame, so I'm
Anyway,
sorry that
anyway.
that's the way you feel, but our
Black
marches
lives don't
were to-
matter. Black lives don't matter to y'all. All black lives don't matter to y'all.
Who is
Just
y'all?
Certain black lives matter.
Let me know when you're on.
certain ones.
Well, wait a minute, the judge.
Sir,
Ready, Joe?
everybody is angry about the situation.
I'm not angry. I'm passionate.
No, about the
Sorry,
situation.
Judge. I'm not angry.
I understand your passion, but then sometimes not everybody understands that passion.
Well, you know what? Not everybody understands what we go through every day. When you try to go get a loan, when you try to go get a home, when people keep denying you, it's frustrating. When you trying to when you trying to talk to your kids about.
No, hold on a second.
Yeah, so what?
Hold on.
Why
Why
are
are
you so right and everybody
And
I
everybody
didn't say it was wrong.
No, why are you so right?
Because I live it. This is facts. I
What is
live.
our
Every
life?
day.
These ain't opinions. live
Where's the
this.
spirits?
I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
this
yeah,
every
we-
day. I'm a walking miracle, Judge. So yeah, I speak it like this because I live it.
And nobody else
And
does.
nobody else has lived
I
it.
never said you didn't.
But that's how you're
I
talking.
said I don't
You
see
accuse
school.
me of
You're
being
not
a
in the
pimp.
school.
Wait,
You
wait,
accuse
wait,
me of
wait,
being a
wait,
fool.
wait,
You know
wait.
nothing
You're not in
about
the
me.
school.
Wait.
You know
Fair,
absolutely
wait.
nothing about me.
I'm
No, like
fair.
a pimp.
I know. Hold on. Everybody's.
Somebody.
All right.
No, this is not. We're
Judge.
supposed to be staying on topic. I had a clear question here. I'm not sure what's going on.
No,
I would
do
like
agree.
an intelligent and conversation as well. I agree.
All right.
I
Yes,
agree.
ma'am.
Thank you, Judge. Goodness. Okay. What does racism look like today? Are we?
Can I say
are
it
you
like
going
this
back?
though?
I can tell you
Unless
what
we're-
racism looks like. It has
I'm not-
racism today, in my opinion, has black people attacking black people.
Yeah,
That's what
I do that on
racism
the
looks like
daily.
today because
Like
we
I
got
attacked the
to
councilwoman.
a point where we
What are you talking
attack
about?
each other for a difference of
I mean,
opinion.
Why y'all attacking the councilwoman? then?
I've never attacked.
Why
the
y'all
council-
running for revenge?
When did we attack the councilwoman? When did we attack the
conversation
councilwoman?
is
Y'all
not
been
the
attacking
topic
black-
at
y'all
hand.
attack certain
If
black
we would
folks.
like to have
When-
this
Bro.
conversation,
It's a bold
once
conversation.
this is done,
I
would like
when
to
did we
see
attack
it.
the
Let's talk about it
councilwoman?
all.
Because you-
but
like
the
to
thing
when did
is,
we attack-
uncomfortable conversations
Let's
have
talk about it
a thing.
all.
I sent it all to you.
No.
We can. We absolutely
You
can.
in my
Just not on
community
here
trying
right
to run for
now.
my community. It's
What
a
does
pro-
that have to do with
I got a problem with
uncomfortable
I
that.
see.
conversations?
Got you.
My thing
I don't
is,
want no
I'm not-
anybody representing
I
this
am not
issue.
trying to
That's-
run, and
that's-
this is my show, though. But
I see.
I
I
feel
need
like
somebody
you're
with
disrespecting
integrity.
me.
I need people.
So
who
your
really care.
integrity is somehow is better? Or
No,
more?
it's-
no. That's important because you're
Okay.
running also. So I'm a pimp,
Who's running
and you're
also?
you admit it right here. You used to shoot at black people, but somehow
I did.
somehow you've had an epiphany.
Yes.
And your life is valued
Yes.
more over ours.
I didn't say
because
that.
That's what you're saying.
No,
You're
I
trying
said-
to
I
say
said I live
we're
my
not
reality.
worthy. You're saying we're not worthy of repping your
I didn't
community.
say that.
However, you're worthy of repping that
I
same
am.
community.
I am
after
worthy.
being one of the people
Guess
shooting
what?
at those same
Guess
black
what?
lives.
And guess
you're
what?
saying that we don't protect.
And guess what?
You're
And guess
saying
what?
that we don't
I help
defend.
their sons and their daughters right now.
That's wonderful. And
Guess
I do
what?
the same.
Does that have
Guess
to
what?
do with
I
you?
invested back in my community.
That's great.
I bought a house in my community. I invested back in my community.
So did I.
What are you talking
I
about?
brought a house in the community.
I put my money where my mouth is.
I
What
put
you
my
doing?
money down.
Please
I put my
have your
money
question.
down.
I have a
Let
question.
Popo
I
ask
have
the
a
question.
question. Is
Y'all crying about the police.
Is this a debate between
People
people that
running?
are running?
Yeah.
for the office?
No.
That's what
That's what it seems
That's what
like.
it
That's
sounded like.
that's what
That's
it.
what
That's
it's
what
coming
it
across
sounded
as.
like.
But it didn't.
Yeah, that's
You
why.
telling me it's not no black on black crime. I gotta stop
That
you.
is not what
I gotta
that
stop
there
you
is
right
no
there.
such thing
You
as
right.
black on black
There is
crime.
such
There
thing
is
as
just
black on black
crime.
crime.
Do
You
we
tripping.
have a problem with crime? Yes.
Absolutely.
Is it black
That's
on
why I
black
gotta stop
crime?
you at.
No.
That's why I gotta stop you at.
That's
That's how I
fine.
know you're not in the streets.
That's fine.
That's how I know you don't know what's going
That's
on in the
fine. We can
community.
have whatever
It is black on
disagreement you
black.
want.
I
No,
disagree.
it's just
Can we
crime.
continue with
There's
the
just
podcast?
crime.
Because we gonna
There's
have to
just
wrap
crime.
this up. People gotta
Call
go
it
home.
whatever you want,
Bro.
but crime is crime.
Bro, you
Please,
fake,
thank
bro.
you.
Call it what you want, but crime is
Thank you.
crime. Call it what you want, but
Bro,
crime
this-
is
I would
crime.
say go
Bro,
high, but I just
bro.
need
Yeah.
I just need a
Bro,
minute,
y'all some fake
okay?
Black Lives Matter people, dog. Not you. I like you, cool. But you fake, boy.
Okay, well, call it what you want
I
and
don't
say
know
what you
me.
want.
I mean,
but
you
the
don't
only
know
thing
me,
fake
but-
is
Oh,
you.
you alright.
The only thing fake
Are
is
we
you
okay?
attacking
Are we
people
okay to go
just
back
because
live?
they're running against
No,
you. That's
no,
fake.
Because I watch.
That's fake.
Are we
You have
okay
not
to go
watched-
back
you
live?
watched
I'm watching you.
You have
I'm
not.
watching you. I'm watching you.
Walter.
Obviously not. Obviously
I've been
not.
around you.
Walter, can you
Obviously not.
chill long enough for us
Obviously
to
not.
wrap up taping, bro?
Hey, look. I'm
An
telling you right
uncomfortable
now.
conversation about racism has nothing to do with councilmen.
Dear black
Oh
folks
shit,
on
we
the
are
east
still
side,
on TikTok.
We're still on
Watch.
Facebook.
Yeah.
These Negroes that come over here trying to run, I'm telling you, do not fall for this trick.
So basically, you used your invitation to my podcast
To try to- right, yeah,
try
that's
and
what this
elevate
was.
yourself or
No,
start
I
something.
don't
And this
elevate
thing?
it. I don't need to see. I got
Then what?
you.
Why the scene?
Listen, because you sat there and said there ain't no black on black crime, and we just saw Hayes Street, bro.
He said
I-
as far as the
I
existence
said
of
not- I said
crime.
there's
Never
no
said
black
that.
on black crime.
So
You
as
can
far
say
as
whatever
white
you
people
want.
kill
Say
white
whatever-
people,
You
black
never
people
said
kill
that.
black people, Hispanic people kill Hispanic people, there is only crime.
White man never did nothing to me,
There
man.
was only. Oh,
I
that's
didn't say that they
fine.
did.
That's completely
White
fine.
man
If a
never
white
did
man ain't
nothing
never
to me,
done
man.
nothing to you, or a black man has never done anything to you, or a Hispanic has never done anything to you, our experiences business are not wrapped around yours.
Go read the guiding principles for Black Lives Matter. Go read the guiding principles.
That's great, but we're not Black Lives Matter, the organization. So just because you try to lob us in with them, there's a difference between Black Lives Matter, the organization, and organizations that represent.
We didn't even get to police reform. We had an officer. We never got to police reform.
I'm getting ready to demonstrate police reform.
Holla at you, man.
Y'all are doing the most.
Holla at you,
Yeah, I got
you good, man. We good, man.
Good.
That's what I'm saying. Y'all so scared
Thank you
of the
for
police.
coming.
We're not scared of the police. How are we scared of the police? We've talked to the police
Y'all
too.
scared.
I see what you mean.
Y'all
Funny.
scared. Yeah, it's funny.
Okay. You're good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ricky.
But I get what you mean. Like you're saying, like within.
Hi, TikTok. I told you
5
guys.
minutes to wrap up, and we're good.
This is Uncomfortable Conversations.
Y'all got a dog fight. Y'all fucking hands.
Uncomfortable Conversations. Thank you guys for joining us right now. Yes, he is. And how quickly shit went left. Very, very quickly. Are we good? Are we live, Rico? Alrighty, guys. For those of us that we still have with us, we do still have myself, Pharaoh. Billy is here, who is a medic in the military, and then we still have Tori here with all of the calamity, I don't even know what to call it, the chaos that just took place. We did lose the judge, and luckily Walter just left as well, steaming, piping, and upset, but he pissed himself off. I don't know. Like, you made yourself that mad, sir. Literally no one. He got really mad. Nobody said.
I'm starting to believe
Oh,
this.
no, Papa, please come back. We have a police reform question. Papa said he is out. Okay, so what was supposed to happen? Are you panned in? Okay, they're panned in to me and Farrah. What was supposed to happen is we were supposed to speak about what racism looks like to us today. I was expecting us to get into microaggressions in the workplace, what it looks like, the things that we fear when officers do pull us over, what it looks like when you haven't done anything wrong, yet the way that our judicial system works. As most people know, I have been arrested before. I got arrested for the very first time last year, and the way that the system goes for someone who is innocent and hasn't done anything, you're still treated as though you have. When they arrest you, they talk to you once you get in there like you've already, committed the crime. Like they just know that whoever arrested you, they were right. The way that they speak to you, the way that they treat you, by the time you get in front of the magistrate, by the time you get in front of a judge, and they're like, oh, you're actually proven innocent. You've been dragged through the mud, dragged through this entire process, and you were innocent. So technically, a bunch of your rights have been violated at that point in time, and you're just supposed to roll with it because that's the way our judicial system is set up. So that's where the conversation was supposed to build up to, which would have been helpful, having the police officer to speak from their point of view, as well as the judge to speak from her point of view once people get in front of her, and then, what happens there for Black Lives. I still don't know what happened.
Well, obviously, if he's running for District 2 and you're running, I think that was a little oversight on y'all's part because he obviously has a personal vendetta.
Personal situation.
It's a personal thing.
Very personal.
Oh yeah, that's why I was trying to chime in, but I could definitely.
Laser beam.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you got going on.
No, I welcome it though, because for one, to me, you welcome any. You don't have to think like I think. So I welcome sitting down across from somebody who thinks differently than me. But I also think it gives everybody a good view of what they would have if they went the other route.
Well, can I put in my 2 cents?
Yeah, definitely.
And I get where he's coming from. Can I just say this? Yeah. I totally 100% get where he's coming from. Granted, the words that he uses and the logic that he's going to get to it is a little misguided. But the fact of the matter, what he's saying is that a lot of people within the hood, right, or with a lot of people within the black community, we really most times don't have problems with police. Like there is a problem. He, for some reason, is disregarding the problem that we do have with the police. And this panel was supposed to be about, one, racism, and then, of course, looking at it in the judicial sense. But we never do actually talk about, though, a lot of the problems that we have within our own communities.
But that's not true. Our organization has spoke on those
but-
problems.
But that's also the point of Uncomfortable Conversations. I wanted to start with this because that's where I knew everyone from as far as the movement, and then we were
Right.
going to start getting into the uncomfortable conversations of things such as colorism,
So to
competition
judge
within our
and,
community.
But we
to
don't-
judge and act
things of
like
that
you know
nature.
how I feel,
Right.
where my stances are. You have no
Absolutely.
idea.
Right.
You don't know
All
anything
of these
about
are topics
me.
that we
I have
need
talked
to bring
several
up,
times on the fact
but in
that
a
we have
respectful
issues.
way.
Right, and
Yes,
it was
in a
done.
respectful
That was
way.
completely
And I've
Yeah.
talked several.
Very
Facts
juvenile.
were
I
not-
have talked several times on the fact of the issues that we need to change within our community. I've addressed it in front of officers that we have
man said
issues
you are
we
not
need to
black.
change. However, to attack each other,
Right, that's uncalled for.
it's
But
uncalled for,
what,
and
but
it
what,
shows the level.
but what we can do is
what we can expect.
what we
from such a
can do
council person.
is the same energy that we do sometimes get around the police brutality. One of the big things that we need to also try to do, because we really haven't been able to create it as well, is the same energy for very micro issues. You know, when we do
can have
have
a
drugs on the
productive
streets.
conversation
It's
now
just-
that the
Here's
angry
the,
one
here's
is
the
a building
difference.
thing.
Here's the difference in my eyes. When it comes to holding police accountable, we have a person that we can go and talk to.
Right.
When someone gets shot on Hayes,
We have no
who
one.
do we march on?
Agreed.
Who do we march to?
Agreed.
Do we march to Hayes and stand there and talk to the bridge? So it's not that we don't care. I think
Right.
that, you know, as being an activist, we very much care. However, we address the situations that we can address.
Right.
We focus on things that we can focus on. None of us at this table have attacked officers.
And
All
we
of us
also
have
need
sat
to
and
start
talked
having
with
those
officers.
conversations with
So-
each other. If we're going to get better within our community, we need to be able to have mature and progressive and productive conversations with other people within the community.
Facts.
And
But
we
we-
cannot have that if we're talking
Especially
to
if
each
you're
other.
trying to-
Yeah, that was
Yes,
that was
and
that was
if
very
you're trying
personal.
to
That
be
was
a
very
counsel-
personal.
And if you're trying to be a
name
council
calling,
person,
if you
then
start
you
trying
need
to
to be
nail
able
me,
to have a
what is the point
conversation
of
in an
having this
intelligent
conversation
way.
at that
It
point?
doesn't matter what the conversation is, because me and you don't have to agree.
Right.
I'm saying
But
based off
we
that.
have to have a
Go ahead.
we have to be able to talk and have a respectful conversation. And at the end of the day, if it still is we don't agree with each other, that's fine. But to sit there and go on live and then try to tear each other
got people
down
in whole
in
other
front
countries
of
like
the
this.
cameras is very unprofessional.
I've
Just
agreed, highly
period.
agreed. And
And so
so
I don't understand how that can be like. I understand where he's coming from, because if he's coming from a point of trying to judge me by my appearance, yet he has sat here and told us himself that he's shot at people, he's done these same very crimes that he's telling us we need to rally and that we need to do, you know, we need to judge and do things to other people. Well, you yourself have been there.
right, and that's what I'm saying. His presentation, the way he went about it, unprofessional. Where his passion is lying at, I can see
But
what
we all
it is.
have that same passion.
And that's the thing, is that, but we all have it, and
Yes.
that's
So that's the whole
we
thing.
know
So
how to
our
control
passion
it, and
is
if he's
all for
running
the
for
community.
Office, he needs to learn that, because based
Facts.
off that disrespectful, all those comments were disrespectful. You have an elder woman who's sitting here, one of our elders. She needs to be respected, and she's a judge.
Oh, judge.
Like, if we're-
Multiple elders.
Multiple
here.
elders,
Like,
but I'm
no.
saying you're talking to a judge that disrespectfully, and then you have people who you want to vote for you.
And then
based
you're
off
saying
that
that we're not treating
interaction.
each other like Black
Right.
Lives
Yes,
Matter,
who do
but
y'all
then we're
represent
here
you?
and we're dogging each other.
Let's go from the top, because this is now a team conversation. This is something we can all talk about, since we are all a part of the same team.
Yeah.
Once Uncomfortable Conversations is over, the point of Uncomfortable Conversations, guys, is for us to have an uncomfortable topic. Not for the actual conversation
was
to be uncomfortable for everybody else at the table.
I was
I
super
thought we reached our
comfortable.
goal.
So the
I
topic,
leaned in.
Maybe I should change the name to Uncomfortable Topics of
Hey, Judge,
Conversation.
welcome back. Like, oh, thank you.
Officer Harden, thank you so much. Camilla, thank you guys so much. I apologize. I definitely was ill prepared for
Camilla, you
personal
want-
vendettas to be at the table. So we do have the officer back, the judge back, and our statistician back, guys. So, woo! Welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. I still am wrapping my mind around exactly what happened, but I am hoping that our conversation can be productive. Now, the point of Uncomfortable Conversations is for it to be a taboo topic that we are speaking about from different generations and different points of view from people who grew up differently. And see if maybe, if we all, two heads are better than one, right? If we all sit and we all have a conversation and we all state our opinions, maybe eventually we would all come up with solutions on exactly what our problems are, exactly what those solutions look like. Because sometimes, while we're trying to fix what racism looks like with other races, sometimes we do need to look within our own community and figure out how we can fix some things there. I do agree with that. I do not believe that we are the problem. And I will never come out and say that we as black people, or we need to raise our children better because we're this, that, and the other. I feel like poor parenting is not a race thing. I feel like there are white people who raise their children the same way that black people raise their children, but they still don't have the same fears that black women and black men have for their black sons. I feel like when it comes to education and things of that nature, there is a clear difference in the funding for certain areas compared to those in minority areas. You know, I do feel like there is a divisiveness, there is a clear-cut problem, and I want to talk about it. And then as we talk about it, I would like for, as this continues, for us to start having solutions, for the community to start tagging in with solutions, for all of us to start seeing that we're not that goddamn different. You know, when we're sitting here and we're talking about our problems, there are people out there who don't think these are our problems. They think that we're making this up. They think that freedom looks like us going to the grocery stores with them, or freedom looks like our school, our kids sitting next to their kid in class. Freedom looks like us being able to put our little bit of money next to their millions of dollars in the same bank. When they look at us, they think that that is free, and that is not freedom. That is just freer than we used to be. And we need to start talking about it. That is the point of uncomfortable conversations. Let's talk about some things that most people, you don't want to have this conversation with just a random white person at dinner. You don't want to tell them about their privilege, but let's talk about it here. You don't want to put on your uniform as a police officer and stand next to someone that you know would judge you if you guys were not wearing the same uniform, knowing damn well you would not be my friend if we didn't work together. You would have nothing. You would think you would have nothing in common with me. But now you invite me out to beers. Now I'm invited to your barbecues. Now I'm invited to whatever this is because we're blue. But if we were not blue, you wouldn't give me a second look. Let's talk about it.
Well, I don't even think that occurs actually. If you really look at it, I think that
As far as being an officer, or as far as the division?
I think that even whatever level that you get to, it doesn't matter. The same person could be your partner. You can have a certain relationship with them as your partner, but there's always going to be difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be a difference.
Especially now.
And as long as there is a difference, I understand your point,
Mm-hmm.
but for the term racism, because unless you can tell me that there is a different race other than the human race, then I don't think racism is a word that we should continue to be able to embrace and continue to use.
So even if we say prejudice, if we were not in the same uniform, you would not speak to me because you would be prejudiced toward me because I don't look like you. That's still something, right? That's still something that needs to be discussed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's key, and it's a little bit what was said earlier is understanding the history. We are more ethnicities than we are race, and the history of the word in itself was brought about to establish a superior race, and that has over time. Bottom line, we are from an ethnicity, I believe, from my studies and what I've come across. But the question, to stay on topic, what does racism look like today to me? And I will default to the word prejudice, only because, as the judge stated, it is a prejudgment. It is a prejudgment of an individual based on your own beliefs, your upbringing, and the things, that you were taught. How it looks like to me, the first time that I knew that I was considered black and different, I was actually 19, 20 years old in the military, and I was at the time a young married soldier, and I had to go out on what is called the economy to get housing because of my rank. I wasn't allowed to stay on the concern, so to speak. And the first house that I went to, it was a German lady that opened the door, looked at me and the representative that was with me, and she shut the door. Well, of course, then the young lady had to educate me on what just transpired. I wasn't given a interview, question, nothing, asked me about my family, nothing. So, based upon what we're talking about, I think that that lady had a strong prejudice towards me. I couldn't deem her a racist at that time, even being a young man, because she has no power over me. And if we look at the word racist, like he was trying to explain, it is more of a dominant type thing. But when I look at it over the over time, I grew up in a time frame where it was taboo for a black boy to date a white girl. It wasn't
You got killed for that.
You were not able to be as
Yeah, I didn't hear how the judge said you'd get killed for that.
to be as Emmett Till, he just whistled. Okay, but when I look at it now, I look at it also for my grandchildren and things of that nature. I look at TV. I mean, I grew up with Good Times. Good Times were Flo and James. They were the hometown heroes. George Jefferson. We moving on up. But when I look at it today, I do see more blacks that are in power, that are in positions and have platforms because they are dancing to a different tune. As the judge pointed out earlier, we have been able to continue over the 400 years to keep dancing and get to where we are at today. I mean, you can just cut on a commercial. You'll cut on a progressive insurance commercial, and you'll see a white man driving. What is believed to be the spouse to the right is an African American female, and two interracial kids sitting in the background. To me, that's progress. From what I've seen as a little boy into a man and having a family and kids, into policing. This profession was once dominated totally by white males. Totally. I did some history, just a little bit of research on our department. We had two brothers that were back in the day, 1902. Two brothers that was on the department. They were considered police officers, but they were not allowed to have badges. They didn't have the same arresting power as a white officer did back in those days. But when I see it now, me specifically, being a police officer today, not that I have power because I wear this badge, but I am treated equally because I wear this badge. And I come out into this community and I do my job. And I don't do my job with holding on to all of the hurt and pain that I know black people have experienced over the years when it came to policing.
May I?
Yes.
You say that you don't have power, right?
Well, okay, go ahead.
So, but law enforcement, that is a system. That is a system that is ran by a powerful institution.
Right.
So you do have power.
Right.
And I hear your sentiments about equality, right? But if we're getting uncomfortable, I would like to ask about how you feel about Charles Roundtree and Joe Zamont Sr. and Marquise Jones and Anthony Scott and Damian Daniels, right? These are black lives in San Antonio that were lost before our eyes. We see SAPOA, we see SAPD having these press conferences about fixed SAPD and the contract negotiations that are to come. So we wonder as a black community, when it comes to these families that are mourning the deaths of their loved ones, where are their press conferences from the chief? Where are the press conferences that discuss the steps moving forward
Their viewership.
for the justice for those families? How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, the thing about it, and I'm going to take this away from you, officer, is you're absolutely right. That is part of the prejudice. Is that the perhaps the mourning is there with folks who still are considered to be sympathetic, that will garner the sympathy of the world. And right now, that's not yet a black face. Understand what I just said. Not yet a black face. Changes have occurred. Changes have occurred. Have they all been good? No. Have they all been bad? No. But is progress being made to where there is going to soon, probably the world will be populated with folks who look like him? A nice blend of black and white, right? All mellow color, right? And so I don't know if that will help, but I'm telling you that as long as there is a difference, people will be treated differently. Now, the thing is, people must be treated the same under the Constitution by which we all are. And that's one of the things that we need to always make sure that we continue to make happen.
Well, can I jump in? So just to kind of give like a little ramification of what just happened, right? Looking at me, right, black and white, it's not true. There's my mom's Creole French, so yes, around the line that my grandmother has down her line, it was between a slave and her slave owner. So when it even comes down to me to even just look at like me, and that if you look like me and more people start looking like me, there would become less and less racism. I think that's completely untrue, because here's my biggest problem is that you're talking racism from the lens cap of your generation, which to you it looks like progress, which it is. I don't want to take.
I was just getting ready to follow up.
Right.
Look to us.
Right. So that's how it looks to y'all in that time dilation, right? Compared to now looking from my lens. Let me say it. For me, my parents are military. I grew up more so outside the United States than I did here. My mom's from Louisiana, Lake Charles. So I've definitely spent some time in Louisiana, and I've definitely seen what it's like to have black on one side, white on the other. And definitely falling in between just from looks, not necessarily how I grew up. But now in a time of where we have modern technology, where we have algorithms, where we have this new lens that isn't really being thought about, and racism and what it looks like in the 21st century, I now can run an algorithm that can literally go and define if you're black or if you're white, or where your generation and your lineage comes from, and I can give you a different loan because of what my algorithm now outputs compared to who you are, compared to somebody else.
I'm struggling to figure to kind of, I guess, tie in how that ties into what Camille was saying.
So okay, Judge Grace, I completely understand.
I don't feel like her question.
Where you're coming from, but as a black man, I'm asking you how you feel about, and what you're discussing is colorism, right?
Right, going into the future.
That uplifts systems of oppression and racism. So how do you feel about that as a black man? Because the black community needs to hear from black folk that represent systems and institutions.
Are you looking to say, okay, that was wrong or that was right?
No, I genuinely would like to know how he feels about like what happens in San Antonio.
Things that do happen in San Antonio, This is a conversation about uncomfortable topics. It is not to go ahead and try to place somebody in a corner.
I'm not trying to place him in a corner.
Well, it's uncomfortable, and that's the conversation, because that question is placing me where my answer will be judged as a police officer and a black man, because I sit before you wearing this uniform. So
So we can't put. Let's not put any. Let's not put your life in danger. But let's not put.
I still gotta be black.
Right, you still gotta You still gotta go back. I get that part.
You know.
So without throwing any of your.
I'm still confused. I thought that we were coming here today to have an honest conversation.
We are.
I do not understand how my question placed any blame, because these are things that have occurred that we have.
Well,
there's still a system.
I don't think
there's
that your question
let me-
cast blame at all. I think that the way that you phrased it, the way that it was received, not what you said, because I do think that the officer heard you. I think that the way that it may have been received from the judge was almost as though you were putting him on the hot seat and making him have to blame someone or blame an officer or put another officer out and be like, this is that and the other.
There's still a game.
You prefaced it also with the police
Specific
department,
names.
SAPOA, fix it. If you're talking about how I feel, I'm saddened at the loss of any life. But when you coupled it with because SAPOA, because the San Antonio Police Department, that is putting me in a corner, because my answer, unless I shoot out a disclaimer and say, hey, this is me speaking, this is not Officer Hardin speaking, with all these badges on to let the viewers know where I work, because my answer could very well cause.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you are even more eloquent about it. The mere fact that
You're
you
here.
are in uniform,
Yes.
presenting. So
Absolutely.
Therefore,
So I have to be
let us
mindful of that.
Be mindful
Right.
of that specific. We can have. This is a conversation about a topic. That topic that is uncomfortable, we need to be still very correct about that, very respectful about that, about having that conversation. But the thing is, and we do not have to be, no one has to be right, wrong, or right. The issue as far as, it's like we have this, whereas prejudice, and we all know the story that you shared with us was a definite example, a very good example of prejudgment.
Right.
I didn't even get a chance to know who you were, and please add to that. Were you in uniform
Yes.
at the time?
Oh,
That incident?
yes, I was in military uniform.
A military uniform representing this country, having taken an oath to die for this country, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
It did not matter. Because the person perhaps did not see the uniform that you were wearing. They only saw the color of your skin. Would that be
Spot on.
And that has happened. So when you
if we,
say
in the spirit of uncomfortable conversations, if I may reword, Al. I gotta get used to trying to use your first name, Mr. Al, because now I feel like my grandmother's frowning at me from up there. I am a lot of things, but I'm a mother first. Pharaoh is a lot of things. He's running for a few things. He's juggling all these jobs, but he is a father and a mentor first. I understand, and I'm sure everyone at this table understands, that you are an officer, but you have children, and you have grandchildren.
Yes, I do.
So, in the spirit of uncomfortable conversations, without speaking of your career, of your job, even of military, without thinking as an officer, without, and I know it's hard because I'm a veteran, so to take the mentality of a soldier out of me, it's going to take one hell of a surgery. You know, although I've gotten back used to being out in the civilian world, there are still certain things that trigger me or that make I still walk into restaurants and want to face the door, you know, because I'm a soldier. I'm a mother first. So as a black man, can you answer at least a part of that question as far as how you felt when you saw things such as George Floyd? Let's make it not San Antonio. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. When you see cases like this, when you speak of Emmett Till, as a black man in 2021, how does that make you feel? Not as an officer, as a black man and a black father and a black grandfather.
Again, I am saddened at the loss of anyone, but it also makes me curious as to what happened. I've learned over the years to not take things at face value, especially if I was not there. If I was not there. But if my grandchildren would come and have a conversation with me about it, I would explain it in the best way that I can. And most of that will be based on my experiences in life. But to say that I would remain stoic and no feelings at all, no, because as Al, I'm looking at all things that are going on around in the nation. And yes, there's a part of me that is fearful for my 28-year-old son, who I know is out there in the community in Austin and driving, and if he gets pulled over or wherever he's at, yeah, we've had those types of conversations. But again, something that what you said earlier, it all goes back to parenting. It all goes back to parenting. And so the conversations that I have and the examples that I've set for my children, I could only hope and pray that when they are out in the community, that they do not fall victim to either violence or inappropriate behavior or whatever the trauma.
And how you feel about what has occurred here, how does that fit into the question on the table as far as what racism looks like tonight?
Are you asking me or asking him?
I'm asking.
Just the table?
Yes.
The flow of topics is what does racism look like, and then we were going into reverse racism, and then we were going into police reform. So the fact that we kind of skipped over reverse racism because the question automatically went into him being an officer.
I think since my question has been reframed for me 3 times, I definitely want, I wasn't trying to put you in a hot seat. I genuinely wanted to know your experience as a black man. And just like you say, you sit here with the badge, we are faces of the community. Our community, which is yours and which is Judge Grace's, has mistrust with the things that we're talking about and with what has happened in the city. And so the same way that you are sitting here, we are representing communities that trust us with the message of Black Lives Matter. And so it's important. That's what I just wanted the dialogue to happen. I wasn't trying to back anybody into a corner. Mm-hmm. The same way that I asked you that question, I thought that this space, this table was the same way that you could ask me that. We're speaking to each other as human beings. And if we're trying to alleviate the pressure of the conversation about racism, I thought that was a decent start.
Well, yes, it is, but I also, and I don't think that your question was purposefully or intentionally in any kind of way, but however, it is how I received it.
Right.
Okay?
And not only that, but also how other people might perceive it, since we're live as well.
We are live.
Right.
And so again, when you mentioned those other entities, those that are watching this could deduct that I am speaking for the department or for the association.
And I'm happy that that's been made clear that you are not.
Yeah, that I'm not. Yeah. So, but again, that I'm saddened by it, because there's one individual that you mentioned. I know the family very well. Grew up with the family. Like I said, I'm homegrown. And what else is important to consider about Al is that when I take off this uniform, and you can go around all over the east side, my community knows me. They know me outside of being an officer. And I think that's important. That's part of educating. That's part of allowing them to see, because I'm not a career police officer. Again, I mentioned that I was military first. And with that even being said, as far as my immediate family, I'm the only one in law enforcement. And it came down to the part where my mom told me the only police officer that she loves is me. But I have to respect what they grew up with. And same thing with my dad. I've shared with Pharaoh and them and Mama Joe, my dad was beaten by police officers. Police officers that work on the very department that I work on now. So how does that make me feel? It makes me feel more energetic and more enthusiastic to come on this police department and make sure that I can do what I can do to not allow things like that to happen, but also be an example of change. An example of change not only to my family, who are harboring ill wills towards the police department, but the youth in the community as well. You know, when they see me, they don't just see Officer Harden.
And that's one of the things that I really, I think that the progress that has been made is, and when I look at it and I say progress that has been made, is because you have more representation. Do you have enough? No. You need to continue to build upon that representation. Because I don't know if the culture, the traditions, the ethnicity that is rich, if it has been so stripped away that now it appears, and consider this, is the only thing that all the ethnicities know is just the one standard of what is considered successful, what is considered wealthy, what is considered beautiful, what is considered anything. Is there only one standard?
I like.
And so if it is, then there.
And I would like to share another feeling.
If I can interject, I would, for starters, like to say that we spoke a few times this summer about the generational divide and the fact that a lot of our elders feel that the younger generation doesn't listen. We don't want to hear, we don't want to learn, we want to do everything our own. We just kind of go out, we pioneer, we'll figure it out ourselves. And then the younger generation has a tendency of feeling like the elders have this way of kind of preaching at us or speaking to us as though we are still children and not adults trying to navigate our way through life, as though you guys were never young and knew exactly what it felt like to be 25 and feel like you're supposed to have your life together and you're supposed to, you know, have your house and you're supposed to this, that, and the other. It's kind of like we got it together now and y'all are out there being stupid. And there was just this generational divide, and one thing that stands out to me when you speak, Popo, is when we asked you how you felt, or when Camilla asked you how you felt about some of the things, none of the emotions that you gave were ones that I feel the younger generation feels outside of fear. Like, we have some of that fear, but your follow-up emotion was curiosity. And, you know, you wanting to know what happened. And the rest of us are just kind of like, I feel like our follow-up feeling is anger. You know, it's like, okay, we're scared that this could happen to us, but we're also tired of it happening to everyone else. We don't have to know that person to know that they look like us. We don't have to know what they did. And at what point do we decide that what they did was worth their life?
And time is not enough.
Right.
Because that's the thing where I was saying, where, you know, where we're at now is that, yes, we're making this progress, and that's what it seems like it's happening, but at the same time, it is
Also,
still happening.
There are like 35 comments of people saying the fact that asking the opinion-based question that you asked is so controversial is a part of the problem. And
Exactly.
Right, it is.
Like, no, and I'm sorry, Tori,
No,
I don't mean to interrupt you,
Go
but
for it.
We'll take
I
the
feel
answer.
like asking a question
Right.
that pertains to accountability in
Right.
this city, the way that I was like almost accused of like putting you in a hot seat, which I feel like that is the dialogue that is to come.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, Black Freedom Factory, the organization that I'm representing, is about accountability, holding local elected officials accountable to the promises that they made us over the summer, and making sure that this dialogue continues, because it's not easy to have. And as we're talking about time, I am a Afrofuturist. I love the philosophy of Afrofuturism because it says that we exist in the future, but it also says that time is a social. It's something that is used to incarcerate.
Right.
It's something that is used to punish. And so I like what Judge Gray said initially at the beginning about reimagining, redefining, reframing.
The vision. What is the vision?
Well, you know, the thing about it is that anger gets you what happened earlier.
In the summer or with
No.
Walter?
No,
spazzing
just
out?
what
Oh.
what you saw.
How
Yeah, 'cause
does
he's
that-
fast.
How does that continue? How do you fit a conversation into that type of eruption?
You don't, but I also feel like people handle their anger differently.
Different,
Because
exactly.
we were angry this summer, but we had 113 days of peaceful protesting, being angry. So even with us having that anger and fueling that anger, we didn't go and buy guns. You know, we didn't go and buy gasoline to burn shit down.
We tried to have
We
conversations.
had conversations,
And
uncomfortable
And
conversations.
the thing that I did not, and language matters, as you all know,
Right.
language matters. The thing that I will continue to rile against is the use of the term protest versus riot. You call it
I agree.
protest, and that's exactly what happened. People protested. But because of the type of people who were there protesting, some people refer to that peaceful, quiet protest as rioting.
I agree, but
And-
that
and-
is, to me, that's still a part of racism. Just like you said, it's prejudice.
Or prejudice.
in your opinion.
Exactly.
To-
Language
Matters.
matters.
Facts.
And that's my point between
Mhm.
sticking to the term of prejudgment, because of the majority of the people that were there, it is called a riot versus a protest. So when you still continue to use the term racism, I want you to go and look for the identity and change the language.
Facts.
The language, when you start using the language,
Yep.
because you're very eloquent in your speaking, but start on your language. One of the things that was pointed out, and I will receive, is we lost our language. It's so important that we gain and regain our language. What are we going to go ahead and do? This is the
That's a good point.
discomfort. It's not a multi-generational thing.
Right.
Because trust me, okay, you guys all read and watch TV and watch all this. This has happened every single generation. So no, I haven't forgotten what it is to be 20. Do I want to relive it? No. Okay, but we haven't. Well, I understand that anger at this youth. I understand as far as channeling it. So we do. I'm not here to say,
The only
that would be a subject for the judge.
The
We
only
won't
thing that I
speak
want to
about
do, Judge,
sentencing
is
and-
give the
and things like
perspective to
that,
people
that
where
nature
that,
just yet.
as y'all
We
say
have a
progress,
thing to stay
there's
on.
also other things that
that's
are
a good
becoming
topic for
anew
a future
that
uncomfortable
there's allowed to be prejudice in. Such as now the thing is the fact that we are on social media and things are becoming very fast-paced connectivity through internet, through our phones, through all these devices that we have. It opens up another area of prejudice that is allowed. Even the algorithm. So this is what I was trying to get into, is that now what people are not realizing is how prejudiced the systems that you use, such as Facebook, such as Instagram, such as these big algorithms and big tech that are allowed to now target people politically, as we've seen it, but now even on a racial disparity, even now on a social economics.
So would you even say like in an exploitation?
Oh, most definitely.
You know,
It for sure.
because
It for sure can.
Although, like, you know, the judge was setting the difference between protest and riot, you leave it up to social media, even though that protest had great meaning, the media turned it into a riot, other than the actions of the people.
Right.
But-
A few, select few, but
Yes.
the lens cap now that an algorithm has, that somebody wrote, that has already bias in it, is now becoming a new field that is allowing to increase this prejudice. So yes, and that's why I was talking about lens cap, was that from where you're standing, it looks like you have progress. From where I'm standing, I see there is not
But she
progress.
spoke on the fact there was no progress. She said it was exactly
She
the
said
same.
it was exactly
He
the
was
same.
doing that.
Oh,
I saw the
got you.
progress.
Right, and so that's where I wanted to say was, but I wanted to bring those two together. Then we're saying the same thing, where it's how do we now, where we're at, start changing so that we can actually be change this prejudice that happens. And you were saying language, which I think is an excellent point. I think that is a first step.
Oh, you scare me. You scare me because you open up and I mean, you enlighten. You have enlightened a total, very dangerous use of technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
And but it's very real.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Very real.
I believe you.
But
all this time that you've been talking is just now, as you have said it a couple of times, that it kind of fell into place, and they said, yes, this algorithm is out there to be able to manipulate just about anything. That's
Oh, well, I wanted to bring in, because the topic was racism in today, and we are still talking like we're in 1990, and we're not.
I agree.
We're in 2021.
And you know, the thing is, it changes spots. It changes spots. It becomes covert, and it becomes
Right. Subtle.
covert,
Or covert,
overt,
subtle.
right?
It becomes overt.
And
Overt.
right?
Overt.
It does. It goes back and forth. But there's it because laws get put in place, civil rights, all
Right.
of that. You can't do this. You can't do that. But
It almost feels like it's just cyclical though. We're here, then we're here. We're
I
here.
agree with that.
And
But
how do we
for
stop
the
that
sake of
cycle?
time, guys, because what racism looks like took a turn when Walt was here. We never even really got into reverse racism. But because we do have you here, Officer Harden, I do want to make sure that we do get the questions that were asked
Go for it.
for police reform and specifically for you in there. The first question was, and I think this is going to be an awesome conversation considering you are sitting at the table with like 5 activists.
And I'm in here.
He is in it. He is in it. He is committed. He is still amongst his own people. I'm not one of those people that believe you cannot be black and blue. However, you have some answers. The first question was, do police, for the table, everybody, do police get adequate training specifically in race and diversity, in our opinion, and in de-escalation? And for you, Officer Harding, the question was, that question also, in your opinion, being an officer, where can you guys improve in training when it comes to race and diversity? So anyone can dive in there. He can dive in and answer it, or you guys can dive in and answer it. You guys can get adequate training.
Again, my comments do not reflect every police department. Every departments need to catch up in different areas. I mean, there's still some small town counties that are trying to catch up with the body cam systems, but we already have it. So on the idea of training, there's never enough training. You can always, with the way things change today, or have been changing over time, even policing has changed in the way that we train, in the things that they used to do as far as hostage negotiation or whatever the case. But cultural diversity, and I still will go on the fact of progression, is that we actually have classes about de-escalation. We have classes about cultural diversity. What is it expected of an officer when dealing with different cultures? Because San Antonio is a great city that reflects diversity. You have all different ethnic backgrounds in San Antonio, and it's very important, especially as a police officer, and I'm using just some of my personal experiences that I've had, and I might have shared this before, but if I go into a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, and I have to know a little bit about the culture. So, for example, there's machismo. There is, I don't know if y'all have heard that term, machismo. We have to be able to de-escalate situations and not escalate situations because I offended a part of his culture because I know nothing about it. But it wasn't until the training that I received that talks about different ways that you handle people of color, and white folks for that matter. And I say white folks loosely and just being me, because I've worked the north side where I've been told by a citizen, a Caucasian citizen, don't you have anything better to do? Go stop crime. Well, no, right now you had a speeding ticket, you just happen to be white, and I'm gonna write you a ticket. But not taking offense to what she is saying, because through the de-escalation training, and when I first got on, it was more classified as verbal judo. De-escalation is now the trending word that's going on. I guess that's attached with police reform. But to try to close it up, there's always training that can be implemented to improve police actions. Now, whether that comes from our folks out at the training academy and where else, that's why we have people that are in those positions to make sure that they are trying to do their best to get the proper training. I don't know that, but for me personally,
I feel the discomfort coming.
Do they come? No, let's talk about it.
More so for me, it's that we talk about training and training and training.
Yeah.
For me, training means nothing if the system is still messed up.
Well, and I agree with that, because now, how do you couple training with the system?
Right.
The system in itself needs reform.
Exactly. So
there's disparity in sentencing. There's sentencing reform.
The system is like the system makes sure that the training occurs. Like it's not being coupled. It's literally a function of the system. The system functions with training and with chief, command and things like that.
Well, specifically to what she was saying, and I was trying to stay on track with that. Officers in San Antonio, every year we do in-service training, 40 hours of training every year.
Right.
Her question was, is it specifically adequate to cultural diversity? Well, when you're trying to encompass new laws, Texas, family, transportation, driving, skills, we have to go through different scenario-based how to deal with situations, and they get those situations from actual events or incidents that have happened in the community. Hey, how would you officers respond to knocking on the door, opening the door, and you see a guy sitting there with machete to his throat?
Right.
In that week time span, is that specifically enough time? How do you allot more time specifically for cultural diversity when you have to be aware of new laws, mental health?
Right. And so, so the uncomfortable part of this conversation comes with what we know to be true, what we've seen, and what comes to my mind is mental health, right?
Okay.
I know that there are folks who are equipped to handle mental health calls, right?
What do you mean by that?
So law enforcement, are you trained? So I think the questions that we're answering.
We have crisis
intervention training.
For
Okay.
example, I have a taser on.
Right.
And in order for an officer to get that taser, they must go through crisis intervention training.
Awesome. Okay. So, and that's great. So what we're wondering though is like in the instances of what we've seen with bad situations. So, for example, shooting through the door, that was an instance. So I think when we talk about training, announcing, SAPD, knocking, those kinds of things are what the community have questions about when we see discrepancies in policing, because the issues that the community face are we don't see what goes on in the trainings. We don't know what goes on in the trainings. We don't know how long they are. We don't know how frequent they are. And so...
And on that note, I would encourage any citizen in the community of San Antonio. We have cops organization. You can come out. We can do ride-alongs. Because I think it's vitally important to be placed in a situation like that. We have a area of training out at the police academy that's called the Village. It looks just like a neighborhood. And you can do role plays. And what I find interesting is that most people who are curious about it, once they are put into that environment or that element, they then have another lens to look through. Because when you say things like shooting through a door, but I'll say specifically this, we don't do anything like no-knock warrants. There's a lot of conversation that I hear throughout the nation. We don't have no-knock warrants. Believe me, they're to the point where almost doing bullhorn announcements.
Right, and once again, I'm speaking to what we've seen in the community. This is once again not an attack on your badge or the department, but I'm talking about Charles Roundtree's case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Damian Daniels' case, right?
Mhm.
The things that are public knowledge, and the discrepancies that we see in these situations are questions that we have.
But what's the discrepancy that
The deaths, the
Okay.
deaths.
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
What's the youngest you can be before you get into the police force?
The youngest that you can be in the police force is 21 years old.
At 21 years old.
And what happens with that is,
No,
go
I
ahead.
wanted to know the age because there's a specific question I want to go ahead and talk about. And there was the O.J. Simpson case. O.J. Simpson case that almost ripped this nation in half. Why? Because O.J. Simpson had the economic prowess to be able to have this level of representation. And there are people till today, both sides, who think O.J. Simpson is still guilty of murder. Okay. Now, in that case, there was a police officer, a detective, that has been trained, and probably, if you would investigate, to see how much diversity training he has had. Firm. Now, how much of that diversity training overcame all the training that was revealed about his alliance with KKK and all these other supremacists? What any amount of training does that eliminate his background, his raising, his upbringing, the prejudices that he continued to have? What training and amount of it? All training does is condition you.
Thanks.
It may enlighten you. You trained me in 2 words because but at first I did not understand. But in you repeated insistence upon your technology, I gained insight and knowledge. That's what training is supposed to do. That's what education is supposed to do. So, will the training continue? Is there an opportunity that one of the solutions could be, well, got it, you only got 40 hours. But you know what? We want another 5 hours. Start off with 5 hours to say that you devote to specifically diversity and training.
and that doesn't help
But-
when you have the conversation of like defunding and things of that nature. When I'm interested in knowing, what does that look like when people say that?
Me
And
too.
I am an officer that
Me too.
You want me to be trained.
Agreed.
You want me to be proficient in dealing with mental health. You want me to be proficient in dealing with a sexual assault of a child or an accident.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're talking about taking away
Right.
from what makes us better. I don't get
Well, here's the problem, and this is not a problem for the police. It's not a problem for anybody. This is a problem that we've had in general, and that is vision. And that is, what does the next system look like? And that's why my problem with training and the discussion around training, it doesn't matter when your system is not being re-envisioned. Because even though we always bring up the extremes of Charles Roundtree, Chris, no, hold on. They are extremes because that leads to somebody's death. But they're in the system. There are tons of people in the system right now who are alive that are going through the same ups and downs of the same system. For instance, I'll give you an example, is that whenever a cop can arrest you, regardless if you have done nothing wrong at times. Because in Texas, we have we have a right to arrest for cops. Meaning that somebody, even if they're unlawfully or have not done anything are getting arrested, you cannot fight off for your life. You must be taken to jail.
Okay.
And when you're in jail, do you know how hard it is to get to a phone, to remember a number?
I haven't been to
right,
jail.
exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like these are extreme cases because they lead to somebody's death. So at the end of it, we're mad at the cops for
But
loss
they
of life.
happen
But
frequently, Tori.
I know they happen frequently. I'm not taking away from that. What I'm saying is that there are more people in the system right now that are having to fight this system that has hurt underrepresented people and low socioeconomic peoples. I'm not saying that we're leaving them out. I'm saying that this is the problem with the system, and we need to re-envision the system because there are people who are hurting continuously, you know, who are and we're not fighting. I'm not saying anything less about those whose lives have been taken. I'm 100% still on that.
Right.
But the system.
If I may, you had a question about defunding the police, and I really want to.
What does it look like?
What does it? What? So
what does it look
I would like to discuss that because language. Back to what Judge Grace was saying about language. Defund the police has become a very murky conversation. It's very confusing. It's terrifying communities. They think that it's police are gone, right? Defunding the police is a conversation about the reallocation of funding, right? It's saying that we should take a closer look at the efficiency of trainings, and we should talk about maybe reinvesting some of that money into parts of the community that are doing grassroots-led work and organizing. So defunding the police has been weaponized and it's been used to make a conversation that is violent, and there's no middle ground. There's no understanding of the true value of it. And what it really means is community. It means that we need to revisit training. We need to revisit these institutional aspects of law enforcement and take a closer look.
But
that goes to system, though.
Also, guys, we got a comment, and I actually want to get this on the table because that's a really good point. Is what I wanted to come in with. She said the police have had funds, but have shown non-proportional results of the amp that you guys have. So you guys have had these funds for years, depending on whatever amount of money you guys give. We fought for defunding this year, but you guys have had the whatever millions of dollars every year to pay for whatever it is that you guys choose to pay for. So it almost to the community makes it seem as though it doesn't matter how much money you guys have. Your priority is not to fund these things such as diversity training and racial training, de-escalation, and things of that nature. If it were a priority,
that could be only take the stance of not getting involved to see what it is that we do as far as training or other aspects of that. But to a police officer, when you're talking about defunding, and especially here in San Antonio with the Fix It SAPD and others in that organization, to an officer, you're talking about taking funds off of my table that feeds my family.
Right.
Okay, that's the reality to a police officer. And then when you say to grassroots organizations, there was a grassroots organization that has blown, and this is Al speaking again. There was a grassroots organization that blown up into what we now have, the homeless camp, Haven for Hope. But tell me why, even when they do the homeless camp, so you're taking out monies from a general fund and you want to give it to this grassroots organization that may have an impact on the community. I will tell you from personal experience, even with dealing with something as simple as dealing with homeless, when an organization goes out to I'm just speaking, you can correct me, I'm open, but the thing that just boggles my mind is, they want to do a homeless count, and they want to start at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and go on until 6 o'clock in the morning, but who are they calling to go with them? The police. So I've even heard conversations, with even dealing with mental health. I think San Antonio Police Department is one of few departments that has a designated mental health unit that people go through extensive amounts of training outside of the 40 hours.
It's there, it's small.
That we have to deal with.
True.
But I've heard conversations of creating some doctors and some psychiatrists so that when a police officer gets dispatched to a call and it happens to be a psych patient, because what we are expected to know and do and be able to understand is by reading that key card for brief moments, brief snapshots.
Right.
We have to depend on that dispatcher. We have to depend on that person making the call to give us all the information that we need to know in order to go and properly address that call.
Right.
But then, of course, when we get there and we find out, yes, that it's a machete that is being held to his neck, and nobody can talk him down. The mother is not there. He's locked himself in the room, and then you have an officer like me who's been to the house before, who has made a report, not because I'm some psychiatrist, not because I've been to school to talk about de-escalation or whatever, but it's because of my training that I did have and just my personal upbringing and having that dialogue with him to talk him down.
But this is, this
is exactly what's missing. Like, we don't hear.
Right,
We don't-
right, and
Which is why I said it's one thing to not hear, and then there's another thing to get involved. I shared this with somebody tonight. I was prepared to take all the darts right now, only because I have on this uniform and what it represents to a lot of people. What you don't hear is because what I'm asking you to do is take it to the next level. Come to the East Side substation. Let me talk to my superiors, and I can schedule some ride-alongs and still have to be concerned about your safety or that individual's safety, my safety, and then that person that I'm going to assist with that call. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that just because you're not hearing it, it does not mean that it's not going on. It does not mean that it's not happening, that we're not being trained how to handle these situations.
Right,
but my thing though, hold on, let me say is that I have never taken away that from what officers do, right? And yeah, that's the thing. Nobody has ever taken that away from what officers do. I know that, of course, there are some people who are not going to understand that, but I know in the talks that I've known Camilla since last year when we started doing this thing. I've heard Joe as well. We have never, ever taken away from what officers have to go through. But that doesn't mean that the system for the next level of what to do can't change. And the only way to get to that system, though, is to defund and unstructure what we already have in place and reallocate it in a way that allows for another system to prosper in its place that's better, that can take in it, that can, it has to be right, but it does have to be part of one of the extensions of the judicial system that is used to allow the judicial system its pretty much its cycle of currency.
But again, to me, what I hear is you're talking about a huge system.
Right.
Where I fall into that system is out here with this police department, and I know that there are individuals out there that want to take funds. Again, that will affect my pocket.
Right.
Well, if we speak specifically to
it's redistribution.
Okay,
but there's no vision given to you. Here's the problem. Right. There is no vision that is given to you.
If I may.
Look, I know, Camilla, I'm just saying from my end, when I've been in some of the meetings, because even when we were at the accountability thing.
I'll say this. I'll say this.
If I may speak.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying that your perspective of it being the food that you put in your children's mouth, and the way that you said grassroots organizations. These grassroots organizations have their ear straight to the community. And I'm not saying that SAPD doesn't, okay? But I'm saying that the reallocation of funding, there are several things that are funded within the police department. New uniforms, sometimes even new cars, right? We're talking about every cent. That's the conversation that Defund the Police is addressing. It's not necessarily directly coming for the children of officers. It's coming for it's not even necessarily coming for. But what about our livelihood, Al?
And it goes both ways, because at the same time, even the life expectancy. What I hear, because we're talking about what I would hear personally. Mm-hmm. What I want to know is that I can have a career on this department, and Lord willing, that every day that I leave my family, I'm going to come home to my family. But when I get to retirement, I will have a pension in place, because there's things that because if I do this, I should look forward to get to this. Right. I should be able to expect this. When I retire, after working these streets and doing what I've been doing for the community and my family, I should have something there for me. But what it sounds like
Right.
when y'all say defunding and reallocating, to many of the officers, you're coming after our livelihood. So if you can say that reallocating or defunding has nothing to do with my livelihood, then my ears
I don't
might
believe
pay
it does.
attention.
But
I don't believe that, and
how other people are going to see it?
Just like how you say what you don't see and what you don't hear the police are doing,
Yeah.
The
that's
point
the
is
same
different
perspectives
perspectives.
that
He's
that
speaking from an
we're
officer's
going to
standpoint,
Right.
but also from a black man's standpoint, and also from a black
feel.
woman's
Right, and so today from this
Safe
dialogue,
space
if
for
you do
everyone.
take
That's the point of
anything away
uncomfortable
from what I said about defunding,
So
I
let's
do
open
want
our
you to
minds
know
and start
that
thinking of
we're not
solutions,
coming
right?
for people's
Start
lives.
thinking of how
Like
we fix
when
it,
I
so
say
we know
we, I
that
mean the
that's how
community and the
officers are thinking.
dialogue, right? The dialogue,
And we know how we're
Tori,
thinking as the community.
I know.
the dialogue is that
What are we
we are
saying?
trying
What
to
are you
take a
hearing?
closer look
Facts.
at funding. That really is where defund the police, the conversation from what I have gathered, is centered in. And so,
But there is a bit more, though. I mean, if we look at
Let me ask.
oh, go for it, Judge.
Right.
Is he part of the community that you're
Yes.
talking about?
For me, yes.
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Be-
'Cause
I don't think
I
that's true.
may not.
well, but that's the fear. But that's the fear. That's the fear that comes.
As in,
But
like,
see,
I see a point. I see a
but
part
that's
of
what the
that we're
same
talking
time,
about, the community
you know,
that we're
y'all,
defending, right?
you know, it has
When he's
been
not in
said
it,
what
it's
the
a part of the
community
family.
is saying. I'm telling, I police in the community that majority wise, from what I'm working out here every day, and what I see and what I experience, whether it's somebody buying me lunch or other officers lunch, or just having that conversation, or just walking up to me with their children, introducing their kids to me, is very pro-police.
Right.
City of San Antonio is very pro-police.
We know
Right.
that.
In contrast to where I've been to some other cities, and I see what it is that they're going
Go
through
for it. Go for it.
and their relationship with the police.
Right.
You know, I have to say, well, obviously what we're doing, what we try to continue to do, not saying that we are a perfect department,
Right.
Okay.
but so far at this point, we have community backing. And so I like talk about the police negative. I've heard a lot of positive.
And
from-
that's alive, and we're aware of that. We quite literally, fight for certain
both sides,
for certain
for
things
everybody.
in the city.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, defund the police is also a conversation about you're being a public servant. You serve the public, right? Tax dollars,
Which
pay.
I'm a part of, and
Right.
I pay taxes.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about defund the police, these are taxpayers that are putting their input on where the reallocation of funding is going, and that's the final point that I make. I
No,
don't
you're
want to take
no,
up too
yeah.
much time
I-
and ask too many questions.
But I just kind of want to reiterate the fact of like this is what creates these divisions is mostly fear. And I'm actually on your idea on the sense of that nobody has given a vision of the future for everybody to know where they fit in. And that again goes to our language, but it also goes to these conversations of that we all know the system can change, but we need to start having these conversations and start making that system a reality. And that also has to come from the
Also
other side of the
goes into
system.
Our next question,
Right.
and to our final question of today, where you were, what would a Texas, because I am in Texas, guys,
yeah.
what would a Texas that actually values racial and ethnic differences look like? And what hopes and fears come to mind when you picture that society?
I don't have a crystal ball.
What is a well? What is?
What that
Oh, I'll start it up.
The vision that he
But
said.
that that so we need to start
But
having.
that's what I'm saying. So individually, because we are individuals,
What's
we
a
will
just
each
law?
have individual ideas of what that looks like. But we will also have similarities.
Peach.
Judge.
So if we
Peach. It looks peach.
It,
If we're
It
not
looks
able
peach.
to envision that, then that's part of the problem.
that's part of the
Exactly.
problem.
The thing is,
And in our community,
if
sure.
all you
Bro,
do
I'm
is
sorry,
just kind of continue to say, okay, we got problems, we got problems, we got problems.
Yeah.
But no solution.
And you don't have an ask.
Facts.
Then you have a problem.
Yes.
You can't envision
Yes.
that ask.
I agree.
Just from a customer standpoint, one of the things that, if you ever notice, a corporation, if you call to complain, and you complain, this person was bad, you go on, and 99% until I learned the trick is that they ask you, okay, what do you want? And then all of a sudden the conversation, the line is silent. What do I want?
What do you want?
Well,
And
This
that's
is
the
what
hope
it's
for these
going to look like.
conversations,
This
for
is
us
what
to
it's
get
going
all
to
of the
look like.
problems on the table, but by the
Respect.
end, for us to
Respect.
Respect. I mean, because
Come to
disruption,
solutions.
you get to a table,
You
it's just,
understand that respect is not me telling you to give me respect
Right.
because of who I am.
Mm.
Okay, that's me having respect for myself, so that I can go ahead and show you respect. If you do not gather from the way that I treat you and I talk to you and I address you, that I'm respecting you, I'm not respecting you.
Right.
I'm respecting myself.
Right. Facts.
Because I can't give you what I don't have. And so when I look at a system, at a Texas, it's respect. Me respecting myself, therefore I'm respecting you. Everybody who comes before my court is a miss or Mr.
How can we translate that to laws? Where I feel that, I mean, even in the history of the United States, where we've had unjust laws in its core sense, but they're allowed because, for instance, slavery was just. Loitering. All these things that we have, which to me, I feel that there is some unrespectful laws. For instance, I do feel that like a police officer allowing to just arrest anybody and they have to go through this long court case and go into jail and be detained and then see a magistrate at 2:00 in the morning and maybe they'll get released, or then they have to sit there for 16 hours, but they can't get to work because now, you know, and then all of a sudden they have to pay all their tax fees and the filing fees of something that they might just get dismissed in court.
Are you registered to vote?
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
think, and I think,
That's how you
Well,
and I think a good product or
But-
a good example that's
She's like
happening right now to what it is that you're speaking about is like the catch and release program. You know, those are little tidbits that can eliminate a lot of tax dollars for having to put an inmate up for the night or the week or the days until they can get the proper representation.
Right.
You know, so again, I do see the progress. I do see them trying to make attempts to not make someone stay longer in jail because of a busted traffic light
Right.
and 2 warrants.
Right. But where is the, I guess the one thing that our question is, where's the fight within the system?
Well,
And where do we,
Yeah.
you know,
I agree.
that's my question.
I
We
agree.
need, to answer that question, Tori, we need policymakers. We need all kinds
You
of people
right,
at
you
this
right,
table.
you
Like,
right.
As we
There is-
continue,
yeah.
the goal is
You
to
right.
continue to get more,
You
not
right.
necessarily more people as in one panel, because I personally feel like we may have had too many today. This is great. But again, the goal of this, the goal of Uncomfortable Conversations is for us to put the problems on the table. And as we look at these problems and we sort through the problems, prioritize said problems, and start trying to collectively come up with solutions. We are not the only people that will be at this table. There will be more panelists. There will be more people who come. Everyone won't sit here every week, you know, kind of situation. But the reason I wanted you guys in particular is, one, we've already kind of built at least, well, I've already built at least a little bit of a relationship with each of you. I value each of your opinions, each of your inputs. We're from different generations, different genders, different backgrounds, different places, different, you know, Afro-Latina and you know, all the colorism that comes with light and dark skin and older and younger and, you know, things of that nature. But Uncomfortable Conversations is only conversation if we don't eventually start getting to that solution part of it. So now, as we sat here and we spoke of what racism looks like, well, I don't even like using the word race or racism. I prefer using the word prejudice. Okay, well, what does prejudice look like, you know, to you? Okay, now we've broken that down. Now, how do we change that? That will be something that we would need to come back and address for another, you know, conversation. We never got to reverse racism and if it can hold the same weight. Sorry, TikTok, I know that was one of you guys' biggest questions. To answer your question, for me personally, no, to me, reverse racism does not exist, but also it can never hold the same weight because it doesn't hold the same pain and past trauma that comes with it for me personally. But that is my opinion, and that is something we can talk about later. As we speak on police, not police brutality. I specifically did not want to go over police brutality with an officer here. I wanted to go over what we could improve, which is why I picked those 2 questions from them. When it comes to race and diversity and de-escalation training, and where can we improve?
Well, on that note, I know I haven't said much the whole time, but I would like to say before you leave, I'd like to ask, because I heard you speak, against with Camilla, against the defunding issue, which is neither here nor there, or the reallocation. My question to you is, do you believe that the San Antonio police, or just police period, not even San Antonio, police across the country, do you believe that there needs to be reform?
Yes.
Now, do you believe that if a system is not operating correctly, if it hasn't been operating correctly, that you should just continue to do nothing about the fact that it's not operating correctly? Or should things be done to immediately cause that system to change its course?
And specifically speaking to the San Antonio Police Department, there has been things that have been implemented to change the course. So to answer your question specifically, yes, I think the department needs to look forward and have that vision to bring positive change. And again, there's things that I have seen developed in our department specifically, dealing with the gay community, and again dealing with the mental health. Things have been put in place to make this department better. We're just not sitting where it used to be and acting like there is no need to adapt to today's society. I'm speaking specifically for San Antonio Police Department. Yeah. On that aspect, me being a part of this department, I see the things that they are involved in and how we are evolving as a department and what we're looking to make it better. To make it better.
And from your perspective, would you say that you see that change reflected in the officers that serve with you?
Oh yeah. Based on my experiences, and if I may, I'm not going to sit here and act like I haven't heard horror stories of what happened in the past and things of that nature. But no department can be totally innocent. It would have to be totally naive to think that things like that did not happen back in the day and could probably still be existing today, but for what my eyes have seen, no, I don't see that.
Thank you, Officer Harding. And on that note, guys, this was the premiere of Uncomfortable Conversations. It is our very first episode. So thank you guys who stayed and bear with us as we continue to try and improve it. I do look forward to reading you guys' comments and your feedback on how you feel the conversation went today, and responding to a lot of you guys' questions that I'm sure you posted and that you had throughout the conversation. Our next panel will still kind of cover some of the things that we spoke about today, as well as some of the questions. As well as some of the questions that you guys asked today. We will also get deeper into some of our solutions. We should have spent more time at the tail end than we did at the beginning of this. So I apologize for that. But again, thank you guys for sticking with us. Again, my name is Jordan, Joe Parks.
Farrell Clark.
Officer Alonzo Harden.
Chris Usada.
Give me a factor.
Tory Sludge.
And for those of you following us on Instagram and Facebook, I will tag those of them who have social media. If they do not have social media, they did just tell you their names. I have some amazing panelists here today. Farrell Clark is running for District 2 of San Antonio for councilman. Tori does have, you have like a plethora of businesses. You just do a bunch. Tori does a bunch of just shit, y'all, if I'm being honest, but it's really good stuff, all of it.
Thank you.
I believe he does engineering, photography, videography. He's like an IT tech. He does like topless tutor.
No. It's not topless tutor. No. Tutor. If K through 12 tutoring, we have mobile tutors here in San Antonio. Find Tutors for You. It's called Tutors #4 letter U. Here in San Antonio, we offer K through 12 tutoring.
Top on.
Tops are on. Tops are on.
Sorry,
Tops are all on.
Tutoring. obviously, Papa Popo here, Alonzo Harding, is one of SAPD's, your SAFE department, correct?
SAFE Department and president of the San Antonio Black Police Officers.
President of the San Antonio Black Police Officers.
And we're looking forward to be engaged into the community.
I appreciate you coming out. I do know that this was not easy. I could kind of tell you were on pins and needles when you sat down, like you didn't know where this was going to go.
It wasn't easy for any of us, though. It wasn't easy for any of us.
I agree. I could feel him on pins and needles, though, just because he did walk in his uniform. I expected him to definitely come in like a hoodie, like, yes, I'm Officer Hardin, but I'm not in uniform. So I appreciate you coming out and being willing to have the conversation. I do hope to have more conversations with officers that I guess I won't say aren't necessarily on our side, but looking at them, you wouldn't assume that they are pro-community, I guess, if that makes sense. And having the conversation with more people. Judge, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come out here and be with us today. We definitely appreciated both of you. And then Miss Camilla Factory here, the phenomenal woman herself.
For sure.
CEO, founder?
President
of the Freedom Factory.
Who?
Amazing activist, very beautiful and good friend of mine. I absolutely adore her. I will tag her in everything, as well as everyone that I said has social media. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing your comments, like I said, your questions. Follow us on the Village Project. Again, I will tag everyone so that you can follow them as well. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Well, thank you for coming to Uncomfortable Conversations. Oh my God.
Judge.
That's good.
She's like, I'm out.
We lost 45 minutes.
Of all the craziness.
Yeah, it was like 40
Now, hey, Mia.
I was like, what is happening right
I think it was a great question that you asked. Like, it's just, I think right now with everything, it's just
like, what's going on?
who sees it on.
I got very confused.
It's not a conversation, this is an argument.
And he would not let me bring it in. I was like, guys, okay, like let's move on. He would not let me bring it in. He had a personal
I think
situation.